special meeting of the Mayor and Council. Today is June 12, 2017, and we are joined by the Recreation Advisory Board. They're in front of us. They don't have a quorum yet, so they're here as observers at the moment, and when they do get a quorum, hopefully they do, they'll also participate as a board. Madam Clerk, could you do the roll call, please?
Mayor Kranjak?
I'm here.
Councilperson Zaversa?
Here.
E. Park? Here. O. McMorrow? Here. M. Park?
Here.
Blue?
Here.
Members of the Recreation Advisory Board, Jenny Casada?
Here.
Don Yee?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
John Evelyn.
Okay. Okay, Beatrice Zanizo Macias? Here. 3 members of the Recreation Advisory Board there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Casada, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Casada. Madam Clerk, would you please read the Open Public Meetings Act statement?
Adequate notice of this meeting was given to the press and posted as required. Date and time of this meeting was legally given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act. This notice is on file with the municipal clerk and posted on the bulletin board. Minutes of this meeting will be made available to the public upon the completion of typing and proofreading by the municipal clerk. Mayor, I also wanted to say, Superintendent of DPW is present, Borough Administrator, the Borough Engineer, and our Recreation Director.
All right, and Councilwoman O has now arrived.
Thank you.
Welcome, Gloria.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So we're here tonight to discuss the field at Johnson Park and any type of renovation that we would contemplate doing to it. We had a feasibility study conducted. Before I open to the public, there's a couple other things that I want to mention. We had a meeting similar to this meeting several months ago. Everyone who spoke respectfully, thoughtfully, comprehensively, and I'd like to continue that spirit of discussion. We may not agree with everything everyone has to say, but we can certainly be respectful and listen. There's been a couple rumors that I want to dispense with right up front. One was initiated by our former Shade Tree Commissioner. That regards the tribute trees or memory trees. These are trees at the park where residents paid to commemorate a loved one, someone who passed away in their family. So those memory trees or tribute trees will always be honored, despite what the letter said that went around, which I got to read, along with his typos. The crux of the matter is we're trying to make this a better town for everyone, especially our children. The tributes would remain in place. I've spoken to some of the families as well, including one in Tokyo, because they asked me about it when I was in Tokyo, and I told them, your tree will definitely be honored, and they always ask me about the tree whenever I'm there, and we have lunch. The other thing I want to mention is that I've been saying for a while that Englewood Cliffs is park-like by its own very nature because of the way that the town is structured, the way the neighborhoods are, the way people maintain their beautiful lawns. And in the 24 years that I've been living here and running under roads, I've noticed a lot more people are actually running and walking, and I love that. It's great to see. People of all ages. And the one thing that I thought was really missing in town were some park benches. We have some public land throughout the town, South Cliffs and North Cliffs. There are places where we could actually put down a park bench where people who are going out for walks could actually sit down and relax, read a book, have a sandwich, there'll be a garbage can there. I'm going to ask the council to approve this plan on Wednesday at our regular meeting, but I just wanted to mention that to you, that you should view the entire town as a park, basically, and that's what I'm trying to accomplish. I had asked people for suggestions about temporary outdoor sculpture installations. I haven't gotten anything back on that, so that's something that we're also thinking about. But essentially, I want to improve the quality of life in Englewood Cliffs for everyone, whether you're walking your dog or you just feel that you can't walk too far from home without stopping, you now will have a place to stop. Okay, in connection with what we're here to discuss tonight, there were several people from the council and administration here who met with the school board president to discuss their field and their thoughts and what they're contemplating doing with their field, and trying to see if there's something that we can do together with them. Quite often, we're viewed as two different governments, the school board and the municipal government, but we all live in the same place, so it's kind of silly, and then it's just a thing of New Jersey law where, for some reason there's this bifurcation, and people have their own taxing authority, and what we wanted to do is try to work together. So, Council President McMorrow, Councilman William Wu, Borough Administrator Catherine Steinel, and Recreation Director Rashard Gary met with the school board president to discuss it. And I'd like to have Councilwoman McMorrow give us a little update on what happened at that meeting and what was discussed.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so I thought it was a very productive meeting. We discussed... I thought it was a very productive meeting. We discussed just some preliminary thoughts, because obviously all discussions were preliminary because I haven't even brought it back to the council yet. But the good news is that the school board president let us know that his board is open to discussions and in working with us in trying to help to find a solution to our problem. And what is our problem? Our problem is that we have one field in town, and that one field is coming to the point where our usage our field is not working for us the way it should be, in regards to the amount of children that we have, activities, and how we want to grow our programs. The dilemma here is, in my opinion, Mayor, and we discussed with the school board president, is could we find a way to take some of the usage off of our field and use the field at upper school? And that's part of the discussion that we're going to be having with the council now. Last week, and as soon as we got these updated numbers from Rashard, thank you, Rashard, for all your hard work on this, as well as Catherine's, gave us all the updated numbers for the usage, and obviously that changes year to year, and if we compare it to what we had before, those usage numbers went up. So, what we're faced with is how do we solve the problem of dealing with the amount of usage we have on the one field that we have, and keep that field in a safe condition for all our residents, children, adults, anyone that uses it. So the school board president had some ideas. They are preliminary. Obviously there are some costs involved, and because it's preliminary discussion, I don't think we should discuss numbers at this point. We'll talk about that. I think it would be, since it would be some sort of a contract negotiation, right, Catherine? We should hold off with the discussions of what our possible contribution would be to the school, and we'll discuss that on Wednesday with the council, and see how that would help us with the usage. But my understanding, and Catherine, correct me if I'm wrong, they would only be looking at Saturday and Sunday usage to be allowed, since it is a school, correct?
No, I understood that after, I think it was 4 or 5 o'clock, we would have usage of the field as well as the weekends.
Okay, I didn't,
That's how I understood.
'cause it, yeah, yeah? Because it gets, I mean, it couldn't help with soccer because we get dark too early. So, all right, depends on the time of year, right? It wouldn't help us with the soccer.
But it would be available during
Okay,
periods that it was feasible to use.
I know, and their concern was just about the school and to make sure everyone was off the school grounds and all that.
Right, not
Okay.
during the time the kids.
Okay, so all of that, most of our activities, though, are on the weekends or in the soccer time is in the fall, so that wouldn't really help us too much. But, it was a productive meeting, so that's the good news. And I think, Mayor, what would be most helpful to us before we open to the public is to, have an open discussion with the council and see what their ideas and thoughts are about the Mazer Consulting, proposal. They gave us 4 ideas. There were 4 different layouts. I mean, there's, all different
Do you want to
ideas on
have,
here.
do you want to have Andy summarize them, and then we could have the council discuss?
Andy, do you want, is that what the council wants?
Can you, just give us a quick rundown of the 4 options?
I can do that.
Just, you need charge, just tell us.
Okay, so in your December report,
Yeah, we could use charts. Yeah,
Just-
whatever's easier for you.
In your December report you received, we took existing Winnie Field as it is and tried to maximize its layout for the 3 uses you have there, 3 athletic uses plus all of your, I'll call it more passive uses. So in the park you have a 60-90 baseball field, skin field. You have a 60-40 skin softball t-ball field. You have a soccer field that cuts across those 2 fields, and then you have a regulation Little League field. Around that, you have a walking path. Around that, you have, as we talked about, trees and dedicated trees. You have a basketball court in the park. You have new tennis courts and basketball courts. We're done, even though the tennis courts are on the property next to you, still part of the park. You have some areas that are wooded around between Johnson and between the park. You have an existing concession stand building. You have an access drive, and you have that big playground. We looked at it to try to maximize that and then looked at some other uses, so we came up with 4 options, and I will tell you the 4 options have flexibility. So it could be built in their entirety, or they can be built less. It'd almost be like a restaurant. So when you look at option 1 has the soccer field rotating to go in between all the infields. So the fence in the outfield, the league field would come down in that option. The soccer field would stay out of the infield of all the fields, so the infield would stay the same, the mound still stayed installed. The playground would move a little bit south, and where the playground currently exists, there'd be a new 27-car parking lot.
Danny.
We would have a drop-off area along Johnson for drop-off, because we felt drop-offs was a safety issue there. And we created a bandstand area, or an area where we could have summer concerts in the park. And we created an area where you potentially could do like a monument park around that would increase the number of people that want to donate to loved ones, their officers, or dedication areas. And in that, we also include some storage sheds for DPW and sports that are going to be active. And we're reconstructing the path and kind of rebuilding the path in place so you have a better walking path and a better surface for later. Option 2 is similar to all the surrounding amenities, but the soccer field is rotated to preserve the Little League field in its entirety, so not touch it. And the soccer field is rotated and slid a little bit towards the east. The layout changes a little bit, but it does encroach on both the 60-90 baseball field, and it does encroach on the softball field. Option 3 has a very different look to it. We really tried to get the soccer field oriented very northeast, southwest, because that's a good orientation for it, like a better orientation for the soccer field. But that layout does encroach on all 3 infields, changes the configuration of the park, and probably has more disturbance to the overall park, but a lot of the other stuff's the same. Option 4 turns the soccer field more east-west, which is a less desirable, but still not directly east-west. It eliminates, in option 4, there's no parking lot, gives you a different playground and a different look for your walking path around. In all cases, we want to keep the 3 uses on the field. which is your rectangular and miniature baseball uses, or baseball, softball. We want to preserve the playground, potentially add parking, because parking is an issue on the street. If you've been there on big days, there's a lot of parking on the street. Definitely create a drop-off area for both drop-offs and potentially a handicap drop-off. So if somebody has accessibility issues, they can be dropped off right next to the walking path and get onto the path and use it as exercise, so they don't have to travel far. We tried to incorporate in all the uses a bandstand pavilion, so it could be used as a bandstand or a concert park or art pavilion, and also be used for shelter for sporting events. We tried to include shelters for all the sporting events, at least one shelter per field. And then we tried to definitely look and keep and maintain the feel of a good walking path around it, a lot of natural walk around it, and, you know, obviously integrate your new basketball and tennis courts because they're brand new, refurbished, so we don't want to lose the look and access of the basketball and tennis courts. In each concept, there are some trees that are proposed to be removed. It depends on which concept we pick and how we organize it. The concepts are a little flexible. The idea was to remove as little trees as possible. If a tree was removed that contained a monument, that tree would be removed in its entirety and replaced somewhere else. There's a way to move those trees. They're not that big yet. If they are, then maybe we look at rededication. No, we haven't gotten that far in details. Other people, there's something out about it. We're not there yet. You have to decide what you're doing. I will tell you that in the concepts, they could be grass, they could be synthetic turf, or they could be grass and synthetic turf. Every option of grass, synthetic turf, or all grass has limitations or no limitations, depending on what it is. In our estimates, which are in the book, which has a number of estimates, we also include estimates to light the facility. If you want to light the facility using the LED lighting, which is very high-end now. The LED lighting is really good. They have a big cutoff, but that's only an option, as everything else is an option. That's a basic understanding of the four concepts.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And just to add one more fact point for everybody is that I've spoken to our neighboring mayors, and several of them have gone through this process over the last couple of years, some very recently, and they've opted for artificial turf and said to me that this is the best money that we ever spent because of the usage of their fields. So I'm going to...
Just add one thing there?
Yeah, go ahead.
To reiterate so that everybody understands, the option we liked the best when we were Mazer was option 2.
Right.
Option 2 gave you the most flexibility for turf, grass, turf, and gave you a lot of flexibility for your surrounding stuff.
Right, and I like the concept of having pavilions and a band shell because, quite frankly, not all our children play sports. Some play musical instruments, so it'd be nice to be able to have them have an outdoor concert.
For art too.
And art, right. So we're trying to make it all inclusive. Yes.
I just want to add one thing, and I appreciate everybody coming out today, and when we open to the public, obviously, I look forward to hearing what everybody has to say. But what I want to encourage everyone is that what we need to do as a council here today, and sometimes as elected officials, you know, not every decision is an easy one. You're faced with decisions where you have to find solutions. This is one of those times where we have to find a solution. It's not an option to not fix the problem at Whitty Field. And as the recreation chairperson, who has, and there are people that are here that are at the games know that I'm there all the time watching the children play and watching the games that go on, something needs to be done. I'm not going to say right now what the answer is to what needs to be done, but the status quo is not acceptable. It's not acceptable from a safety standpoint on someone who has watched the speeding on Johnson Field, on Johnson Avenue. It's not acceptable that cars park in the crossing lanes where children don't have a place to cross safely. It's not acceptable that we don't have a place for our seniors to take shelter when they're walking and it gets too hot or it starts to rain all of a sudden and there's no place to take cover. There are so many things up there that's not acceptable right now, and we are a beautiful community. Unfortunately, we are faced with this dilemma because we only have one field. Other towns are lucky. They have more than one field, and when you have more than one field, you have more than one option on what you can do on your several fields, but we have one. So what I'm going to be asking our council, as we start to discuss this, is we need to find solutions. And we all may have different opinions. At the end of the day, we have to come up with the solution that we can all, the best solution that we can agree with, to move something forward and to improve on what we already have. So, thank you very much, everyone, and I look forward to what everybody has to say.
So you wanted to poll the council?
Well, I want to, I'd like to hear, starting,
Right.
with Councilman Aversa, I just want to hear what everybody's thoughts
So
are.
let's go down the line. Councilman Aversa, do you have any thoughts on this or preferences?
Well, I think we all know that, something needs to be done with the field, and I'm anxious to hear what everybody has to say.
So what?
Well, I want to hear what, yeah, right.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
people elected you, they want to hear what you have to say.
Are you for turf? Are you for grass? Are you for lights? Are you for, what are you for?
I prefer natural grass. That's my preference.
Okay.
Because I think if you maintain it properly, and you can't put, as I complained about with this year's budget, you can't put $7,000 in a budget to maintain a field that requires $75,000. So, as long as we understand that and are willing to maintain the field, I don't see why you can't have a grass field and maintain it properly. I
Okay.
understand
Well, it's yeah.
use issues, but
Well, how would you propose, and this is just, well, because we're trying to all, this is right, this is the working, I wish we could sit at a round table so we don't have to all, look across each other like this. So how would you, the problem is, like I said, in a perfect world, if you had grass and you had more than one field and the usage is not an issue, how do you propose that we can maintain that grass with the usage? Because the engineer is telling us we
yes,
can't.
that's why we're here.
Okay.
No, but how would you?
Well, I'm not a grass expert, so that's why I'm here. I want to hear what the experts have to say.
All right, so let's
That's
listen.
my opinion.
Okay.
Andy, can you have input on that? And by the way, Councilman Aversa, I never heard about the budget issue on the maintenance, so that's a new one.
Oh, you must have been paying attention, man.
No, I've been here at every meeting. You voted down the budget for other reasons, I think. So Andy, can you go over the turf and how we deal with it?
Usage numbers, right?
So, if you remember last meeting, one of the big questions that I left was the usage. There was a lot of questions of whether the usage that we had in our report was actually real usage. The previous director gave us numbers of as follows. 2015, the complex had about 403 total uses, and that included softball, baseball, soccer, on that complex. 2016, it went up, it was around 510. And then the question was the numbers right? So Richard looked at it totally independently. He looked at the 2 years and looked at the projection for 2017. The previous director was a little bit low in his numbers. The usage numbers per year are almost 600. It's like 583, but that's a little flexible, so it's closer to 600. So you're probably about 100 more uses than the previous director projected. If you take the complex and you allow about 16 weeks of playing time, it's about normal, you really should be somewhere between no less than, for grass, no less than 160 uses to upwards of 300 uses. If you project that, add some more time in, maybe add another 8 weeks in, because that starts to get a little, there's no recreation time there. You can maybe get close to 400 uses that complex to have with grass. You're at 600, so you're 200 above that. The other problem you have is you were to put 400 uses on the complex, you need to have shutdown time. So this year is a great example. My son plays Little League Baseball, and we had our first Little League game in Morris Township, and it was like mid-April with one practice, and that one practice was inside, because there was no fields. Morris Township won't let you on the fields. They shut them down. The coaches were going crazy. They said, too bad, field's closed, go on, there's a $500 fine. So nobody goes to the fields. You have to have the willpower and the wherewithal to shut your fields down, to allow people to say, sorry, we're not playing this weekend, because grass fields can't maintain the precipitation we just had in the last 4 months and then play them. And then you went from 4 months of the most rain we've had in that 4-month period in the history of keeping rain to now it's getting 90 or 100 degrees and drying fields that will turn brown now. So again, you have to look at it again and go, we may have to shut down for a week or two to let the grass get out of its dormancy. So somebody has to make the call to allow the grass to grow and not grow and fertilize it. Because fertilizer, you can't plant on it. You got to shut it down for a week. Nobody's out there on it. It's a chemical. So you have the same issues with grass. So depending on your usage, if you want to maintain 600 uses, you're going to have to do one of two things. Either look at some hybrid between turf and grass, or cut the usage back, cut some sport or some group out, and then commit to, spring shutdown until those grasses growing and feels like they're wet. Have a summer shutdown and a late fall shutdown, and not really play on it in the winter because you're going to destroy it when it should be dormant. So you're looking at about 6 to 8 months of playing time, and somewhere between 4 to 6 months of shutdown. And in the shutdown period, you're resodding. You probably would see, if you drive around New Jersey, you'll see fields that have these big white sheets on them. And you're like, why do people put white sheets on their fields? Because they actually underseed them. They put the white sheets on in the wintertime to keep the heat in, let the grass grow. It doesn't grow up on top, it grows down below, so the roots grow. And those are things you need to do. The best example of maintaining natural grass is Parsippany. Mary Jones Road, Route 80 westbound, Smithfield's on your right side. Look across, and if there's not a game playing on Parsippany and Smithfield, there's a big sign. I mean, the sign's as big as this. It's lead frame sign like this, and it says, "Do not play on this field under penalty of law and/or imprisonment." If you get caught in the field with the sign on, they arrest you. They take you away, and if your parents can get you, if you're a parent, they can wife you if you're a crazy dad. And they enforce it, and those fields are in amazing condition because they limit their play to about 10 uses on a field a week.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes they'll go upwards of 20 if the grass conditions can handle it. If they can't handle it, they don't have the line. They cancel games. And they say, sorry, go to one of our fields that are in bad shape to finish up. And that's the balance. Now, Smithfield was getting a lot of pressure in Parsippany, so they took one of their fields and took it down and put it to synthetic turf soccer children. So in that complex now, it's a synthetic turf soccer field that can overplay for baseball and softball, really fields of West, kids that want to overplay baseball and softball in practice.
But they have an extra field that they can...
Well, they have 9 fields, I think it is. But all I want to trade you is grass. If you maintain your grass at your house, it takes a lot of effort. The effort for athletic field is worse. You need more fertilizer, you need more pesticides for the grubs and that stuff. You need more weed treatments. You need that, or else it feels too big. It's just going to get overrun by weeds, get ruined. Your roots are going to come out, and you need. I think Councilman Versa said it right. Probably a complex this size needs about $75,000 a year to maintain it right. I can tell you this. I don't know if a town that spends that much money on a field. That's why almost all your surrounding towns are replacing it with the grass, because the synthetic turf fields cost, I don't know. I mean, if you went crazy and put the fabric softener stuff on them, you're maybe spend $5,000 or $6,000 a year total to brush it. I'll give you an example. The borough of Montdale is looking at replacing Fieldstone School, which is a 200,000 square foot turf facility. In that facility, when we did it way back in around 2000, in that facility, they left the infields natural. Well, they realized there was such a maintenance problem, and they were actually canceling games. They ripped those out. They got some grants, and they actually ripped them out. And the facility's now, 17 years old, and they're just now replacing it. And that was the older turf. They don't use that anymore. They use a much better turf.
But we're gonna open up the public, and one of the things that I'm gonna do is, we're gonna open up the public, you'll have your chance to speak, but I wanted to have Mr. Hippolyte finish. And also, I'd love to hear from our recreation director, because he actually played big-time football. So, what are your thoughts on this, Richard?
The whole process of turf and grass?
Yeah, well, you've played on both, right? And
Well, like you've been saying.
Richard's very humble. He played for Penn State, and he was a quarterback there.
If you can play on the natural grass that's well-kept, and you only play on once a week, of course you want natural grass. That's just ideal. But when you're playing multiple sports, year in, year out, practice games, scrimmage games, unauthorized use, just adults, like just adult league, then you got just anybody just coming on the field. I would say it's more ideal to have turf, just because you don't have canceled games. You can make up your season. You're not having soggy fields and then have to cancel, and then people getting complaints about why they can't play because of the drainage and all those things. I played on both. Like you said, the old turf, I wouldn't recommend it. It's horrible. A lot of injuries, a lot of things happen from that. I played on the newer turf, the synthetic grass, and I like it. I like it much more. But with this situation here, because of the usage and because you want to get the kids playing and obviously keep them safe, but in my opinion, I like the turf, or whatever's done, we'll work with and go from there.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Why don't we continue?
I just was curious, Councilman Aversa? Councilman Aversa? Oh, I can't see you or hear you. Besides your feeling on the grass, how are you with redoing the whole complex? Put band shell, updating everything that we talked about that's in this booklet here, and the lights. How are you with all of that?
It's still out for opinion, that's what I'm...
No, but I want your opinion. The public is...
What's your opinion? Let me hear your opinion.
What's my opinion? I'm okay with lights, and as for turf, I would like to hear if there's a way that we could possibly do some sort of a combination with a small infield. Listen, we're here to talk as a council together.
Exactly.
So what is your position?
I'd like to hear all the experts, I'd like to hear the public, and then I'll give you
Well,
my
the
opinion.
problem, let me just interject here. We
I'm
are,
all for redoing the field.
we are the leaders, okay? We have to make decisions.
I'm all for redoing the field, it needs to be done. So something, yes, definitely needs to be done. What that is, I'd love to hear all the opinions. Like I said, I prefer natural grass, but I also have coached a million sports in this town, and I understand that playability is an issue.
Okay, so,
And we do need to consider.
all right, we've been at this for 5 months, so you have no opinion yet.
I just gave you my opinion.
Okay,
I
all
don't
right.
understand
All
what the
right.
problem is.
We just want to know what your thoughts
I
are.
just told you what my thoughts were.
Well, do you want turf? Do you want grass, or?
I would prefer turf. I would prefer natural grass, but I'd like to hear other issues because I understand that playability is an issue. It's our only field.
Right.
So what is the problem?
I'm just asking if you're, well, because we're working as a
Look,
board together here.
So
We're a
why
council-
my opinion...
We're gonna come to the next one.
All right,
We'll
fine.
talk.
Let's just move on. So you have no opinion right now. Councilwoman, council...
Are you really a little dense or what?
No, actually, I'm not.
Why did you not understand about my opinion?
The part where you can't make a decision.
I just made one.
All right. Councilwoman Park, do you have anything to say?
Make a motion to open to the public. I second that motion.
No, we're not, no, that's all we're doing. We'd like you to... The public is here, and they're entitled to know what our views are.
We could discuss about our views at the end.
Councilwoman, he runs the meeting, and he didn't make a motion to
we-
open to the public
You're
yet.
making this very political. Let's just open to the public and let's hear what
Okay,
they have
so-
to say. Don't make it public, okay?
But we vote, Councilwoman, we vote. The public, we're gonna listen to them, but I would like to know, as my colleague, what your...
Hold on, let's go- everybody has
What's
one
the
chance to
thoughts?
talk.
Okay, let's just-
You have a right to give an opinion right now. If you don't have one, then just say you don't have one.
Mayor, I don't need to give my opinion.
Then that's
I
fine.
understand
I'm fine with that.
But please do not make this political.
It's not political. We are...
You're putting Councilman Aversa on the spot because he's up for re-election and you want to...
Absolutely not. We've been at this for a year already.
There's a second.
There comes a time when elected leaders have to be leaders, okay? And this is that time. You've been at this for 6 months. Okay, you're out of order.
Rude, I'm saying right now, I'm not here to hear you argue. They said to open it up, that's
Well,
our
it's-
opinion.
that-
Off on their position.
You need to wait until your turn, ma'am.
No, no,
Yes.
I don't need to hear
Yes,
your
okay.
rudeness.
All right, fine. We're trying to be polite. If they don't have so Councilwoman Park, you have no opinion. Councilwoman, you have no opinion right now, as we said. Okay? Okay, fine. Councilwoman McMorro, do you have an opinion?
I already gave, I believe that I'm okay with lights, as long as it does not,
Right.
the lights that Mr. Hippolyte was talking about, that have no spillage, and that they're directed, especially if there's a part of the field here,
There's full cutoff.
there's full cutoff, and also we walked the field with the recreation director, and the field that backs up to the corporations back
Right.
there, and we haven't gotten to this point yet to talk to Andy about it, but I was wondering if, and I know, of course, Little League's field is set up where it is over in that front portion, but I was wondering if there's any way, if we took those fields, and if we're redoing the whole complex, if we could take them and put them towards the back. And then if there were lights, hold on, if the field was there for the Little League and then the girls softball, and if the lights, when we were looking at some sort of a layout, were in the in an area that would least affect our residents, which is in the back. Corporations have their parking lots lit already as it is, so we're not adding that much more by putting the lights at the back of the field. Their parking lots, which are adjacent to our field, at night have lights on it. Anybody that goes up there sees that. So I was wondering if we could talk about that. I know that we didn't talk about that option. That might be taking a little bit from 2 and one of the other ones there, and kind of mixing them together, but, you know. So we need to do something with the girls' softball field, because Rashard and I were up there after those very heavy rains, it was a week ago, 2 weeks ago? And I appreciate all the help from the DPW superintendent. They tried their hardest, but after 2.5 days of solid heavy rain, when we had those heavy rains, the puddles, it was still wet there. 2.5 days later, it was still damp. And,
I have a question.
It had to do with the drainage.
Why can't we tarp the field when it starts to, when we have 2-3 days of rain?
It's actually
a good question, huh?
that most towns are struggling with. So the problem with tarps is when a tarp is put down, it can only stay down for so long before it starts killing the grass, because the grass can't breathe. So when you see Yankee Stadium tarp, it's great because they got like 25 guys that come out and roll the tarp out, and they have 25 guys that come back, and so it stops and open it back up again. It's always on and off when they need to do it. You don't have the staff to do that. You have, just like on another option, so if you take, I had said that I liked option 2, just because of the way it laid out. If you look at option 2, which is up here, in option 2, the Little League field could remain as grass, because the use design is about 75 uses for the year, so that's actually a good number for that field. And that thing doesn't necessarily have to be lit. The back remaining half, now, if you look at the arc, this back remaining half, the soccer field, 90-foot baseball, and the softball field could be done in turf, make it very versatile. It could be lit, which puts it way up the street, and then the softball field and the big baseball field could also piggyback as places that Little League and baseball and softball will play when it's wet, while still maintaining the grass look up front.
Right,
So you could,
yeah.
you have, when I said before, a hybrid,
Yeah.
you do have a good natural hybrid split between, making about 35% of the complex natural grass and about 30% synthetic turf in the rear. So you have the option.
But if we had the manpower to tarp the field, let's just say, is that an option, or? And then just as far as
A field tarp, so a field tarp for a 90-foot infield baseball, the right tarp might cost you $50,000+ a year, plus you need the manpower to take it on and off all the time. It's gotta come on, when the rain stops, it's gotta come off right away.
But it's an option, right?
Oh, yeah.
A year, 50,000?
That volunteer will cost $50,000.
2,000?
Volunteers in the crowd to take the tarp off and put it on?
And,
You know, a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know our baseball league, we've struggled with this in Morristown National. We've talked about getting a tarp in Dangerous Field, and we just don't have the manpower to pull it on and off. That's fine.
You also have to remember,
Maybe the whole thing.
And then-
after the
What'd you
rain,
say, was that?
after the rain, it's much heavier.
Right,
Right.
you need about 25 people to take a tarp off.
We actually tried that 2 years ago, where we put maybe 40 by 40. I mean, that was heavy by itself. What do you do? It's
Your
really-
field needs to be pitched and set right.
Yeah, you can't get that wrong.
right.
It's not.
And then I have one other, I have a few more
Can we just finish
questions.
polling Councilman Park? Did you have a view?
Yes, personally, I don't like to put on the artificial, turf in here. But, we talk about the annual game, number of games, we need more opportunity. So I wanted to, combine a little bit, put on the inside the artificial turf, because I don't like it, this artificial turf, because I have experience with Foley High School, especially summertime. Heating of serving is very, very severe, because I have experience. Very late night, and I walk around that field, still it's very hard. I think this is definitely no-go for our children. So I don't support about the put on the here artificial, in my experience, but I want to sacrifice about our, annual playing game. That's a little bit more infield only, maybe partially put on over there, and then put on the light in this area, and then this, we need here parking space also here, disabled drop-off area, that's a very good idea, and put on the, light, and we can make, more chance to play game. That's, ideal for us. But 100% artificial, definitely, I don't like it. We have to be careful. This is make our town worse, so I don't support about it. That's it, my opinion.
Councilman Wu?
My first comment is, I think the field is in very, very poor condition. I've, a couple of the coaches that I coached with, this year, are sitting out there. We had about 4 or 5 games rained out. This year was an exceptional year. It rained a lot. But, I go by as someone, our kids, our sports and rec programs will only be as good as the equipment that we provide to them. The example I want to draw is, let's say you're playing tennis with a wooden racket these days. It's, you're not going to get very far. And our fields right now, just in my opinion, are not up to the par that they need to be at in order for, our recreation program, our Little League to get up to the level that I know this town can get to. In terms of order of priority, I think lights is definitely at the top of my list. I'd love to see the field lit up. How that gets done, I think I would defer to the engineer to see if we can push the lights off so that they're not directed at residents. Number 2, I love seeing a parking lot. Growing up in Eagle Cliffs, this town, for years, Johnson Avenue has been, a problem. And having a 25-car parking lot designed in by our engineers, I think that's a terrific idea. It'll definitely just mitigate, additional risk of us, God forbid, losing any lives. The third one is the gazebo. Bandstand. I think that's a terrific idea, definitely for seniors. We just have benches lined up all in the park, so it's very difficult to create that kind of community atmosphere. I think having that gazebo, I'd like to see that even bigger than it looks right now. It looks kind of small. I don't know how many people can sit in there. Looking at the plan, I think that is another, and then the drop-off. The configuration addresses a lot of issues that we currently have, aside from getting to the point, the most important issue being the surface. In terms of the surface, again, definitely want to hear more from the public. There is the opportunity for a compromise solution where, we have a portion of the field maybe as far away from the residents as possible, be artificial turf. But again, there's a lot of things that go into that decision, including cost. And, it might cost more if, over time. I think it still gives us the option value of potentially, switching to all turf, or if in the case that the turf that we decide to do in the hybrid approach doesn't work, we may be able to go back. Would love to hear that from our engineer. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Wu.
I still have some questions.
I want one question answered from Mr. Hippolyte. In terms of Johnston Avenue, I know that that's also part of the plan. Can you just speak to that for a minute in terms of traffic?
So Johnson Avenue has an inherent speeding problem. People just don't adhere. The cars traveling down that area are pretty, I think, are pretty localized to the community, and they whip down that road at 40+ miles an hour. It's almost hazardous to stand there. We had our traffic guys do a traffic study out there, do a car count. You have to slow traffic down somewhere, whether you install speed humps or tables, or whether you allow parking on both sides and then really net the road down and make it feel really narrow, whether you use striping to narrow it. Somehow you need to slow cars down there. The sign's not working, and it's obviously unrealistic to leave a police officer out there all the time, and you're probably ticketing your residents anyway. What's going to happen? So it's an issue there, and that's why the drop-offs are very important, specifically for children getting out. You want them to get on the right side of the car, and it's also people with accessibility issues, whether it be other people or children that have accessibility issues.
Okay, thanks. Yes, Councilwoman Park.
Regarding the lighting, you have a budget here of 1.245.
For the whole entire complex.
It's for how much would it cost just to get lighting for the Little League field?
So just the Little League field by itself is probably about $300,000. The Little League field is 4 poles. And if you did LED poles, full LED, so that's maybe a little more, probably make it 350, because LED is a little more expensive. But when you use LED fixtures, they're a very flat-looking fixture. Most of the sports like you see are round, big fixtures. LED is like a really flat panel, and they have a zero cutoff. So if I put an LED fixture and I wanted to light this line right here, I can measure 0 here and measure 30 here. That's how good the cutoff is. It's unbelievable.
So if we were to get just for the Little League field, it would be just, it wouldn't encroach on anyone else's,
No, somebody would,
right?
if we turned off all lights in this room and looked out the door, we all would see light there. There'd be
Okay.
no lights there, but we could not take a reading on it. So that would be the same effect as the field.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
I think I probably will have some questions after, but,
Okay. What I think we should do now is open up to the public for comment. Again, please be thoughtful, respectful, and if you're going to state something as fact, have some support for it. Don't just state something as if there were fact without support. I've already heard a few comments. Anyone from the public? Oh, I need a motion, actually. Can I have a motion to open? But we didn't have a vote, though, as I recall. All in favor of open to the public?
aye.
Okay. If you're from the public and you wish to speak, please come up to the microphone, state your name. I haven't called anyone yet, sir. State your name and address, and I will call on you. Yes, Nicholas?
This is in regards to the turf field.
You have to state your name and address.
Okay, sorry about that. My name is Nick Kranjak. I'm from 47 North Virginia Court. It's about the turf fields. I play football. I played in a vast amount of turf and dirt fields, and I just want to say that turf field is the way to go. It's just way better to keep up with maintenance, and also softer and a lot leveler, like a lot easier to play in as far as sports and stuff.
Thank you. No problem. Appreciate you coming. Good job, Nick. Anybody else from the public who wishes to be heard? Yes, sir, in the back.
Joseph Ackerd, 319 Castle Drive, Englewood Cliffs, obviously. I want to say that I basically support the field. It does need work. I think the major point is safety, safety on the field, safety in the park, safety of Johnson Avenue. Okay? I also was on the field, I guess it was a few weeks ago, and the drainage, it's a quagmire. It needs to be taken care of. The drainage is a serious problem there, okay? The reconfiguration of the field, however, sometimes raises a question. You did answer one of the questions by saying you weren't going to move any of the donated trees. So that takes that question out. But reconfiguring the field, I don't know if that's 100% necessary or not, but you have a little bit lower usage, according to the paper that you put out, than you had last year with a lot of the teams. Not according to what he put out in his information.
And which information?
Well, the one that you had printed with all the pictures and everything, you were down to 100, and for soccer you had 171 hours, and you had 2-something hours the year before. You were the same with the Little League games at 75 games. You only had 10 major 90-foot baseball games going on. You had 254 hours of softball. I think that went up a little bit.
Yes, you're right. So from the original data, 15 and 16, we saw some increases and some decreases. As I said earlier, Richard looked at all that data and found it to be actually incorrect.
Oh, okay.
The previous director didn't account for all uses. They were not separating out what we call the skinned infield. They were kind of mixing it in, so the uses actually went up. You had about 498 soccer, skin infield, and baseball, and then you had another 85 that other baseball. So it was actually went up. Those 15 and 16 numbers should be higher. They're not right.
Okay, well, if you have to reconfigure the field, to get the most out of it. I don't see why it's necessary to make a soccer field the size of a high school soccer field when you don't have a high school here. I mean, that seems to be,
Yeah, the soccer field, so soccer has a maximum size, and it has a minimum size, and depending on where your recreation wants to use it, so between your board and your recreation director, they can come up with the size they want within the box. So it would fit inside this box, that's the maximum size.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, you still can't play soccer and play the baseball at the same time.
You cannot.
I mean, you can play one or the other. Okay. Anyway, I don't want to go too far with that. I did have a question about enlarging the playground. Every time I go up there and I see kids at the field, there's never an overflow or anybody fighting to get onto the stuff. It's underused, and your population of that age is going down.
So there's, at this point, might have been missed last time. Under the 2014 federal mandate on people with disabilities, there was 2 lawsuits, one was in Missouri and one was in Kentucky or whatever it was. And they looked at various towns across the nation and said, are they meeting the American with Disabilities Act? It was really passed back in the 70s, or really in the 60s. And everybody was really just trying to do the best they could. And there was 2 major lawsuits over this. And what they came out of it is that in municipalities, in New Jersey, bears the biggest burdens. We probably have more parks and recreation facilities per square foot than anywhere else in the nation. The rule of thumb is 33% of all your facilities should be accessible to people with disabilities. So the new park may look bigger in area, but the structures are just going to allow people that are handicapped to get onto the structures.
This was for the playground area.
Right, the playground's going to now be accessible to wheelchairs. People with wheelchairs have ramping systems.
Okay, I can understand what you're saying, yeah.
That's why it looks bigger.
Because if they bring children in,
it'll still be the same structure, size, and use, except now there's going to be a ramping facility that goes with it.
Okay, I had in my mind for some reason that it was going to be twice the size,
No.
and you were going to move it.
I'm just going to be accessible.
Okay, that's good. Not a problem. We don't have to deal with the tree issue. Unfortunately, you're saying you can't do natural grass, and you haven't been able to find any kind of hybrid grass that would take that kind of wear. Okay.
No, exactly. So what I'm saying is you can do natural grass. I think if you do it, you're going to need to cut down your usage.
Right.
Up your budget.
Right.
There is a hybrid type grass that has seen a little success in the professional world, which is grass with synthetic turf woven in it. It requires a lot of maintenance. It's something, you have to contract that out. It's a whole different animal. I don't know budget-wise if you're ready. I don't know if a town has done it because it's not maintenance.
Okay, well, I'm assuming you're not going to be able to deal with a grass field and accomplish what you want to do. So we're going to talk about turf.
Well, I think what I said was, if you look at option 2 allowed you to have
the grass for the little league.
All grass, and this portion of the field all turf. So about 70% would stay turf, and about 30% would stay natural grass, and that's the percentage.
Okay, so it's a hybrid switch. Okay. With the synthetic turf, I have some very big concerns about the crumb rubber. Obviously, one of them was the heat. The other one happens to be the 75 or 80 carcinogenic agents that have been found in the rubber under analysis by a number of different organizations, including the Europeans and here in America and by different universities. So I think under that situation, I would think you would want to consider the cork if you're going synthetic and not the rubber. I would not want to expose any of these children that are playing, or anybody there, whether they're children or not, to any potential like that.
So there's a really big discussion right now in the turf world about the all-natural infill cork being one of them. Just had this discussion in Borough of Montvale, so you can go look at it. It's on tape, which happened about a month ago, and the council disputed cork versus rubber, and now they're going to go with crumb rubber. And the reason they want a crumb rubber doesn't matter to me. I don't necessarily care. You can decide what you want to do. The reason they went with crumb rubber is because the cork is a natural product, which is porous. So they're finding that these natural products, when somebody blows their nose open from a bullet in the face, or somebody sneezes, or animals defecate on the field, it holds it. So now you have an area that now is holding potential issues of breathing. You know, it's very new, the cork issue, it is porous. It does, the other issue, it does break down. So cork, if you notice within a year, needs to be re-corked again, because it's broken down very quickly, so it's natural.
Why would synthetic not work that?
No, we can't, we can't do it that way, sir.
We can look at that. And that's a discussion that's happening now in the world of sports, or this natural product.
Okay, you do know that on...
Not me, just so you know.
No, but on February 12, 2016, the U.S. federal government designated 3 of its agencies, the Environmental Protection, I believe, the Consumer Products Safety Commission, and what's the other one? And the Center for Disease Control, to take up and evaluate the fields containing the crumb rubber. And that is under investigation currently.
Right, so the federal government is investigating regulatory. The issue is, we were at last meeting. If you look at the MSDS charts for synthetic turf, you're not going to find anything in those fields, you don't find anything else every day. So there is a debate, and it's not me.
No, but
It's not me. There's right now a debate among this world of athletes, among this world of scientists, going, if we really truly find these fields that we shouldn't play on, we have to now look at the carpet in our house. The carpet in our house is a petroleum product made at the same place as the synthetic turf made.
It's the synthetic...
I'm not here to argue the benefits. I'm just trying to present to you.
Right, but it is not the plastic part of the material, and it is not, it is the synthetic in the crumb rubber that was made by a vulcanization process, reacted with a number of other things, including the sulfurs and all, that have created as many as 80 carcinogenic materials within it. And there are studies to show what's in
I'm
them.
not your guy.
Okay.
All I can tell you is, for every article you read about how bad it is, there's 25 that say how good it is, and that's not being told by me. I'm not satisfied with it. If you either want to use it or you don't,
I understand, and I don't want to labor this, so I'll pass on, other than to say I would be very concerned about putting our children in, or any children in, or people into a field that had crumb rubber, simply because 30 years from now, they might start finding that the cancers are developing, not today. It's not going to happen. And people are getting cancer, and you don't know. You only have 2 things that you can positively relate to cancer: cigarette and radiation. Smoking and radiation, the only 2 things that have a direct line to cancer. Anyway.
Okay. Here's our problem. We have a lot of people here, and we follow Robert's rules. You're welcome to continue, and anyone else who wants to speak will get called on and can continue as well. But that's Robert's rules. I didn't make them, okay? That's what we follow.
I would just be careful with the crumb rubber discussion, and you could have as much dialogue on it as you want. I'm not getting in the middle of it. All I can tell you is that if you do research, you're going to find on one side all the claims, and you're going to find the other side all the reverse claims. There's probably 20 or 50 state health departments that have already cleared it already. There's probably the other 25 that said, well, we're not clearing it, we won't clear it because we just think there's something wrong, we just can't find anything.
Right.
So you're going to find this argument all around. You guys can talk about it all day. I mean, I would assume that most of your kids are already playing in their own towns.
And actually, at our last meeting, we had a chemical engineer come to the microphone, and she said, look, there's problems with fertilizer as well. Here are the problems with fertilizer, and then she went through a list. And so it's, not using fertilizer is probably not an option here, or, it's just not going to work out for us. So why, there's an issue of spending money and then not having to spend the same money again. That's why people use fertilizer, right? So there's issues with both sides of the equation. And Andy, maybe, keep us abreast of that federal study. I appreciate you pointing that out. Thank you. Yeah.
Plus, I have, being a scientist to start with, I have seen a number of studies, including the European studies, which break down the number of carcinogenic agents, and I'm saying it's probably about 80 different carcinogens, known carcinogens, that are in that crumb rubber. Does it get into you? There is particle dust that you breathe.
Right.
Does it sit in you? It's not going to get out of your lungs once it's there. It's going to sit there until it dissolves somehow and exposes you to it. So I would have a big concern.
Do you also have any comments regarding fertilizer, as a scientist?
Don't hit it with a pickaxe, because it'll blow up. It's not good.
Right. So, but in terms of health?
And I wouldn't continually breathe it in.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean,
You have to be licensed to put it down.
yeah, I mean, there's really two different things in terms of a consideration. But okay. The only other thing is the lights. Now, I have no objection to lights on the field. I don't live in the area, so I have less objections. However, you're really looking at maybe 7 months of using the lights. You're probably going to have to shut them off at 10 o'clock at night, right? Some set time like that.
There'd be a set cutoff.
Yeah, and it would have to be around 10, I would assume. You can't, people are going to scream if you go much later. But that means you've got 3 hours of lights in like April and May and September, October, and 2 hours of lights that you need in the other 3 months in the summertime.
Right.
Or maybe May and take out August, but shift it around. That's not an awful lot of usage of lights for $1 million+ plus.
Right.
Okay.
Well, you know, in terms of that issue, there are coaches here tonight, and I welcome them to address that issue about how much better that'll make their lives as coaches in terms of practice and games. So, I'll defer to them on that, and I appreciate you raising all your points. They're very thoughtful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Anybody else from the public wishing to be heard?
You're stuck with me, Mayor. Are you ready?
Well, you've had a few comments already, so I thought you were done.
Dave DiGregorio, 165 Charlotte Place. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for recognizing me. I appreciate it.
I hope you're feeling better.
I am feeling better, and I will comment on your wonderful tennis court behind the Lions Club. This is where I actually broke my wrist on last Thursday. So
I'm sorry to hear that.
No.
You opted not to use the new tennis courts at Woody Field?
No, I wanted to be able to ride a bicycle there to with my son, and that was a lot closer to use those tennis courts. And they were wide open, and now I'm glad they're closed because they really did pose a danger, and a nice broken wrist. Anyway, I just have a question. No offense against anyone sitting here, but why are these people sitting here, and who are they?
Well, at the
Did you
beginning of the
explain it? Okay,
at the
I
beginning of
wasn't
the
here.
meeting, you weren't here, so I will repeat that for you.
Okay.
These are the Recreation Advisory Board members.
Got it, okay.
And that's
No,
a
enough
joint
said.
meeting with them.
Okay.
Right.
One thing about, make sure my fly is up, because it's hard to buckle your pants with one hand.
No one's looking. Go ahead, just continue.
Cameras over there, which is
You want to... Yeah, I mean, if you have anything to say, please.
I'll give you, okay. Who out of town is using the field? Is anyone not part of this town using this field? Is it everyone? Now, how many people, how many kids that perhaps are older, that have gone to another high school, or do we have high school students, high school age students playing on our fields?
Yeah.
We do. Okay. Are there clubs? I guess my bottom line is, who gets priority on the fields? Because we have a problem. Our problem is too many people, too many games, not enough fields. So either we're going to improve the fields, or we're going to cut down on the usage. Or we're going to ask for people that would be playing on our fields to possibly go to Leonia and play on those fields. So I'd like to see do we have a breakdown of exactly who's using those fields? That's my first question.
So you want to know if out-of-towners are using the field?
That's my first question.
Second question is, are high school students using the field to live in town?
And are there any teams or private teams or whoever that are using these fields that can be displaced and said no?
Well, I can answer all of them. No, no outside group.
Okay.
There's no, you said high school, or only thing with high school, we got our baseball guys here, the senior league, like maybe a freshman, I'm not sure.
But those are residents.
But they're residents.
They're all
so They're all
residents.
residents. There's no outside groups whatsoever
no club
on the
team.
field. No private groups from out of town on the fields.
Okay, all right, so there's no out-of-town groups playing on the field?
No.
All right, so that answers that question. What I'm saying is I think that we really need to prioritize who is playing on the field, when they're playing on the field. If we don't have enough fields, I mean, it's a supply and demand type of thing.
Well,
You really need to-
prioritize is, the Little League comes first on their field.
Okay.
Then the breakdown that I had showed, the first one only says soccer and softball. We got a lot of backlash that said, we do not play softball in this town, we do not play softball. But we have a girls softball team that plays there a couple times a week now, because, especially with the rain. And I have to schedule them for practice, and then a lot of them like to practice on Saturday, so that's where that uses come in. And it was, when it said softball, everybody was saying softball meaning the big field, but I broke it down to the 3 fields. So you have the girls softball field, the skin field, and then the Little League field, as well as the soccer field. But the skin field is mostly for adult softball. Then the girls and coach pitch baseball participates on the girls softball field.
Okay, so my main concern is that we prioritize and make sure that no one else is
Yes.
wearing out the fields that don't need to wear out the fields.
Well, we do that already, right?
Good.
We do that.
Oh, that's good.
That's a
good.
given.
I mean, how many children do we have in town now compared to 5 years ago? I mean,
5 years ago, I don't know. Paul, where's Paul Duffy?
it just seems like that,
I think, Paul,
this
would
is...
you like to maybe help with that answer?
I know that we had a third grade class a couple of years ago, and one of the kids in it, we had like 85 kids in it, where the normal was, I know that when the school was like 30, 35 kids.
Yeah, me too.
So I knew that was a big class, but I don't, and we don't know for sure how many kids in the age group of participation sports is.
But it seems that
That's
like...
going up, is what we're saying.
It's going up?
Oh, yeah.
But it seems like
Class size.
the less people are moving into town with small children, so, no? Okay, all right. The other thing is, it's Andy? Andy.
Don't ask me about rubber.
Don't-
I got to solve this rubber issue.
What?
Don't ask me about rubber, crumb rubber.
Rubber?
Crumb rubber.
What, chrome rubber? No. Chrome rubber, okay. Crumb rubber, crumb rubber. You already know what I think, and I think we all kind of
You guys have to
agree.
decide it yourself.
What's that?
You have to decide that issue.
Yeah, I mean, as a person, but you work for a private company, right? What's that?
Yes, I do.
You do. So, I mean, I think certainly if you're going to sell a product,
I don't sell the product.
right. But if there's any danger, I think it would be prudent to say there is a danger. But my question is, the lighting. You're going to put lighting posts up there, right? And those lighting posts are going to have lightning rods on them, or not?
The plan actually calls for...
The light post
yeah.
will be grounded, yes.
The
They'll be
plan calls
grounded.
for a lightning detector, correct?
Okay.
Yeah, we call it AG1 funding.
Yes, so, right.
Well, that's my next question, because you put towers up there, it's going to attract lightning.
They're grounded.
The ground.
It doesn't matter, even if they're grounded, they're going to attract more lightning. Yes, look it up.
Well,
So the other
wait,
thing
hold
is,
on a second, let me just clarify. Are you an engineer?
I'm not an
Okay,
engineer.
are you
I
an
do-
engineer?
Yes.
The engineer is telling us that they're grounded,
Okay.
Okay.
So they're grounded,
and we have a lightning rod.
and you have a lightning rod, but then you're going to need a lightning system to get the people off the field.
It's not required. There's thousands of fields in New Jersey that have lights on it, and there's no lighting problem because they put lights also.
Always making things.
The lights are grounded. If you want to put up a lighting detection system, you can. We did one in Tenafly next door. It's a great system. You can tie into it. You can probably use their base station and do a shared service and probably do it very economically.
I know,
I would have it in my town.
Andy, I know the one in Tenafly,
I did.
and you did it, and it got hit by lightning. Yes, it did. No, I actually went there, and I saw the amplification system. It got hit by lightning. You blew out, talk to Todd Lepore, you blew out the whole amplification system got blown out in that, and it was hit by lightning, and probably was a danger to anyone who was going to be in the booth or anywhere near.
Andy, is that
So-
a fact or not a fact?
It is a fact, I will tell you
So you
that.
say it's a fact, he says it's not. We'll find out.
So the Tenafly lightning detection system,
I'm saying that
the Tenafly lightning detection system doesn't detect a bolt of lightning striking. What it does is it's part of
a system.
the national network
Exactly.
of lightning detection. So when lightning gets within 20 miles of Tenafly, it's detecting actual strikes 20 miles away, and it sets off with alarms and sirens and lights. It doesn't actually detect strikes. So one's, you're confusing two different.
No, I know, but I may
I don't know
have,
who the
look,
word is.
but I will say that, one of the light poles in Tenafly was struck by lightning.
Well, that I have no idea.
Okay, so maybe we misunderstood each other. It was struck by lightning, it blew out the amplification system there, and probably posed a danger to anyone who was near. So if you ground the pole, the lights, I don't think that's a guarantee that it's for safety. Okay, so that's all I'm saying. And, you've got something to say, I'm sorry, I will...
No, take your time and...
Oh, thank you, Mayor, that's so nice of you, you're really very nice.
I feel badly for you, okay, I tell you.
Thank you.
I create this new tennis court and you're playing on the old course and getting hurt. I just don't understand.
All right, let's see, we got this here. When were these, built? When was, Whitty Field renovated last?
Early 2000.
2001.
2001, 2002.
When was it?
98.
98.
It was redone again.
It took about 6 years to do, as I recall.
98.
So it's less than, it's like,
18.
18 years? So who did the field?
I designed it.
You designed it? So it's only lasting 18 years and we have to redo it again? And so how many millions are we spending?
That's not fair. That's not fair.
We've overused it. Well, no.
That's not fair. You're
no,
attacking him.
I'm not attacking him. I'm
Yeah,
just,
it's 18 years. We're out. I mean,
he
look,
knows I'm
you
not
explain it.
attacking him.
All right.
All right, so it's 18 years, so we have to modify it now. And how much is it going to cost the most conservative? And I'm going to be finished after this. How much is the most conservative? How much, 2.5 million?
About 2.5 million.
Okay. Where and how are we going to get that money?
We're bonding it.
Bonding it. Okay.
There are two grants you can apply for.
Okay.
And that's a decision you have to make, because there are grants you can apply
Look,
for offset.
And
the
who is
grants
going-
aren't going to work because he doesn't want anybody from out of town using our field, so.
And who's deciding on the bond? Is that a council decision?
It's a council decision.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, does anyone else from the public wish to be heard? Yes. Please state your name and address.
Hi, Heidi Skolnick, Stanford Drive. So, I just missed, maybe I missed this in the beginning, how many days,
Mark, thank you, Mark.
Take it down, you can take it down, come down.
It's a little high, actually, let me lower it.
That's kind of slow. Thank you, Bob.
for my first song,
Thanks, Mark.
so how many days do we lose per year due to rain?
It's gonna vary. I'm not your recreation director, but it's gonna vary year to year.
I had asked, actually, the head of Little League to provide that number to me, and he's not here at the moment. I think they had a championship game, hope they won. I don't know if anyone else knows the number. Okay, we'll wait for him to arrive.
Okay.
This year, the number had gone.
Yeah.
I mean, every town's strong this year.
Yeah, right, every town's strong, so the weather is something we can't control. So, because you opened it up, I will just also say that I'm for grass. I think that in addition to, which is not small, the carcinogen, and I would never want to expose my child or any child to that. So even if that is an unanswered question, it's not one that I think is worth the risk, because we're not taught, at every stage of play, you're willing to take greater risks. When you're a pro athlete, you take very different risks than when you're talking about our little kids. And so the majority of the play here is below high school level, although there may be other towns that come in at some point and play high school, and, and there are adults that come on for adult leagues, but it's all for recreation and play, and it's not for, I don't think the risk-benefit ratio is there to have to put them at any risk for any reason. And then the much smaller thing, which is it does get really hot, and so there are a lot more burns that go on. I don't know how many of you actually play on artificial turf. Do you prefer it? Do you prefer playing on artificial turf?
I do.
You do? You prefer it?
Yeah, I do too, but I'm the engineer.
So I don't know any athletes that do, and I work with athletes as a professional. That's what I do professionally, and I don't know any athletes that do, so I can't imagine our kids are going to actually enjoy it or going to prefer it at this level, at 8th grade and below. And I don't think that as a parent, I want to be fixing the burns they get from a hot, rubber, artificial turf.
What kind of burns? This turf doesn't create any burns at all.
When they don't, it doesn't get heated and burn.
Whatever the temperature is outside.
There was a gentleman who was just talking, does it get hot and
It's hot, not hot to burn. The AstroTurf.
No, I'm talking about
Yeah, I can show you a scar across my arm from an AstroTurf.
No, he's talking different kinds.
It's talking about different, yeah, the AstroTurf is the old turf that will burn when you hit the ground.
Right.
There's a lot of friction.
You know,
Yeah.
so this is not that style.
Are you a baseball fan?
Not my favorite
If
sport.
you just watch, if you watch right now, the college world series, it's nobody's, it's all synthetic turf. They're sliding on it, diving head first on it. It's just, it's friendlier to slide on than grass or clay. Clay will actually cut your skin.
Yeah,
synthetic turf will not.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's my opinion. And I just, so how does this work going forward in terms of coming to a determination of what we actually do?
The council evaluates everyone's comments. They speak with the engineer, everybody else that they should be speaking with, and then the council gets to vote, and I get to watch.
So this is it? This is the last open meeting? This is the whole discussion that goes on to make the determination of how much money is spent on what the configuration will be? Is it an all or none?
This is the second meeting on the topic, and the intention was that this would be the public meeting to discuss it. You're free to make more comments after tonight. Just email them to Richard or to Catherine or to me even, and we'll make sure they're addressed by Andy.
So you're not going to do anything like through the school systems to help parents who may not really be aware this is going on to see, or, for more of the people that are really using it?
We've advertised, we've gone through great pains to make sure the entire town knows about this, in an effort to get everybody involved and informed. And I know you said you don't know any athletes who prefer this. My son was the first speaker, and he said he preferred it, so...
there might be a little...
No, actually, he prefers it.
Okay, good, but I'm just saying that's not what...
All my kids, in fact, preferred it, because maybe that makes me a bad father, and maybe that makes my wife a bad mother, but my kids loved sports, so it's, according to you, that's not a good thing, but for us, it's been a very...
Mayor, I did not say that.
It's been a very...
I'm not accusing you
but it's been a very good thing for my family and my children. They play soccer, track, and football.
And so that, you asked for opinions, I gave you...
I'm giving you my opinion, too,
okay,
so...
I'm not picking on your...
Heidi, the other thing that we're trying to figure out is in talking with the school board, with the president, they're looking at redoing their, field as well. So there's a timing issue. So as a council, when we sit and discuss this after we close to the public, we do have to know what direction that we're going in. Even if, I'm not saying the plan has to be 100%, right? Because we could be asking Andy to, we like this part here and that part there, and can you come back with a different picture, adding all these pieces together? But from a timing perspective, we have to figure out with the school, if we're going to work together, how do we do this? Because they have to close their field, I was told, for a year when they do this, so we need to know what field will be open, how can we help each other, and there's a lot of planning that goes in. So that all has to come into play, so we can't keep delaying.
What is the assessment, or what would it be in terms of, like, if it's this $25 million, we get a bond, how is that going to be paid for?
It's not $25 million. Wait a minute.
No. Was it? What did you say?
2.5.
2.5.
Oh.
Hold on.
Good, I feel better.
Big difference.
That
little dot does matter.
Okay, so look, I think what I'm hearing is people are supportive of doing something. We're having a disagreement on what we're going to do in terms of turf or natural grass. We're having a disagreement perhaps on lighting or no lighting, but I think that could be reconciled. I think we're all in favor of fixing the traffic flow on Johnson Ave because there is a torrid pace of cars going through there at all hours. Parking, it's included, but I really haven't heard much about that. We'll have to discuss that more as a council, and I encourage the council to really start sharing your views. In terms of the playground, I think that needs to be done. I had complaints over the weekend from some mothers who said that the children's playground was in need of maintenance, repair, and improvement. So I think those are the takeaways so far. Yes. No, I was pointing to her behind you, yes. Because she was one of the first people to arrive, so.
Hi, Karen Chanakis, 53 Dillingham Place. I just want to clarify about the trees. My understanding is that the trees won't be untouched.
That's the
The
intention.
donated trees.
Right. If they have to be moved, for whatever reason, then we're going to seek permission to move it from whoever planted it there. I don't think,
No, the plan that we have here, the idea was to work around and save all the trees we saved. If you want, and just going crazy, and did the maximum you could, you probably have about 25 trees that have to be removed total. I can tell you we can work around that. If the trees with the plaques are there, as I said earlier, if we run into a tree with a plaque that has to move for some reason, we would come in and actually bring a machine to actually move it and replant it, or try to work around it.
Right.
We're not at that level of detail. It's not there.
my intention is to honor all those tributes, because they are very important to the community and to the families. We don't want to disturb them.
Yes,
Right,
yes,
absolutely.
they are.
Yes, and we're very respectful of that. Yeah.
Okay. And just one other question about the playground. Did I hear you say that you wouldn't be expanding it?
You have to expand the area to allow for handicap accessibility.
Okay.
The best example of it is River Edge Road, down to Tenafly, go right down to Tenafly, take East Clinton Avenue, all the way down to Tenafly, go across town, go River Edge Road, heading west. On the right side across the municipal complex is Municipal Commons. When you drive by, just look, you'll see a pink, like a purplish green, blue playground. Look at that ramp, it's brand new, you can take a wheelchair.
Okay, I've been there. Okay.
It's brand new, we got a grant for it, which is what we'd applied for here too.
I see.
Grant for it, it's fully ADA accessible, and your heart will melt when you see a kid in a wheelchair now with the
Right.
on the playground. It's a really good sound.
Would you be, so I was just wondering if you would be expanding the playground north?
So we put the parking lot in, we would expand it going southward. So what we would do is, if the parking lot was to go in an effort to kind of save some trees, we put the parking lot
Right.
where the old playground was, and move the playground down so the trees that plant the playground can stay there to shade it, because it's good to have trees in the playground area. So that would be the idea, put it there, we'd have to no trees in the playground.
Okay, so you would put the parking where the old playground
Up
is?
top, yeah. There are a few trees in that area that, if we put back the apartment, there are a few trees in that area.
So where would the parking, so where would the playground be then? if
It
you
would
were
come
putting-
down, it would come south.
It would go south?
Yeah, the area in the field this area in that field.
Oh, that's what up that
There's
south.
this big area in the field that nobody uses, Spring is just kind of, that area would take over. There's a foul territory area that's really.
All right, so that would encroach on some of the trees?
Only, not the playground, just the parking.
The parking.
The parking lot's the only spot where I think we couldn't work around the trees, that's the only one. And there's four trees,
That's where my tree is.
we would work around it or have it.
Our tree. All right, thank you.
Yes.
I didn't even thought on that part.
Well, Mayor, hi, everyone.
Hi, Tom.
Thank you, sir.
We
Thomas,
should just have like all the 12 people speak first, and then we can start dropping.
Thomas Pilowitz, 236 Fairview Avenue. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
The good news, it sounds like, everyone seems to be open to some kind of compromise tonight. I'd love to hear Ellen and Gloria, before we leave, where you guys stand on this. I mean, there's a lot brought up tonight. I happen to coach the 10U travel team and a rec team. We've played about 30 games. I gotta tell you, I'm so envious of Little Ferry's Field
we thought we were getting rained out, we went there, the field was immaculate, we were able to play on their new turf field. Cliffside Park, Fort Lee, speaking to their coaches, they don't get rainouts there, they allow us to use the field when our fields are, like everyone's been saying, the girls softball field is a disaster, second base by us is a disaster, the Little League field. I had a couple questions, if you don't mind. Do any of these, in your proposal, the budget, is there cork and sand infill in that proposal? Because I would sleep well at night. I don't know I'm not speaking for Little League, I'm speaking for me, my son. A kid sliding into second base, I mean, you compare it to a rug in your house, or my son's not laying on the rug ingesting 25 rubber remnants, as opposed, if someone slides in and you ingest that in your lung. I'd rather a bird poop on the field and us deal with that and sleep well at night, because I like the scientist said, I read the same, maybe I read too much, but I read the same stuff. And you said there's opposing views also. But, I mean, there's studies by ESPN, there's studies by the CDC now that soccer goalies, I wouldn't be able to sleep well at night if any kid in our town, came up with something. Why not maybe, instead of the cutouts of every base, you can make dirt, if that's where most of the sliding is done, and use the rubber remnants and the sand, and like you said, a partial turf, it sounds like everyone's open to that compromise.
We just, the job we have in Montville right now, they got pricing for both the 200,000 square foot field. It was already existing from rubber and synthetic turf. And they're going to replace it. They got a price to replace it in that fashion. It was like $538,000 to do the rubber and turf. When they did the turf and cork, it was like $800,000. So for them, they said, listen, we look at it, we've had 17 successful years, we're not changing. They did their own research. It wasn't my research, and they decided that they thought the porosity of the cork was supposed to go fluids and things like that. All I'll tell you is, in this world, is every day a story comes out good, somebody comes out with one bad against it. Every day one comes out bad, somebody comes out with one good against it. What I try to base my data on, is on the agencies that actually do the research. So like the soccer goalie story. The Washington State University coach made this claim about their soccer goalies, so what happens? Washington State institutes their health department, investigate it, and they disproved it 6 months later.
Okay.
It's not my data. It's not my story. I just, and then somebody made a claim about lead in Newark, on the field of Newark, and lead levels were off the charts. The NJDEP got involved, and they studied it for a year and found out it wasn't the field, it was lead coming from the site next door being rehabilitated. But still, the story of the paper was lead in synthetic turf fields killing kids. So it takes a long time to disprove that.
But there's just, to me, I mean, again, I'm not a scientist, like, listening to that gentleman, like, I mean, there are carcinogens in rubber. Like, if you ingest it, why run that risk of putting that down rather than cork and sand? Like, there's cork and sand, there's no carcinogens in cork and sand. I mean, it would seem a lot safer. I mean, I'm all for putting a state-of-the-art facility here. I know there's costs involved. But to me, you don't want one child coming down with leukemia. I mean, God forbid, like someone said, 25 years from now, maybe someone, there's a greater study by the CDC or something, and I don't know, this is, again, I'm not speaking for Little League, I'm speaking as a coach, a father, that my son plays on a field with those rubber remnants. I mean, I'm dusting him off. It's all over. You see a ball pounding into the ground, there's 1,000 pellets that just pop up, and that scares me. It really does. I know. Yeah. Are the fields? I'm sorry, Councilman.
We can put cork, right?
Oh, you can put cork, right?
So we can put cork in sand. I mean, that's a good point that he's bringing up. Can we
do that?
Are the fields, any fields you're doing right now, doing cork and sand?
It's about 8 months old.
Where is that in?
Academy Field.
Academy Field?
It's a private school in Middle Team Academy private school. The Cordy School, they got a lot of donators, and these donators gave 30% more.
Is that Newark Academy? Or?
It's Team Academy.
Team Academy.
In Newark, and now they're looking at a second project in Kansas.
How's it look?
You can't tell me.
No.
It's listen.
So
yeah, I can't make a decision for the community. You guys have to make a decision.
So we have to rely on experts, though, we're not experts. I mean, the scientists might be that, but I'm not an expert. I think most of the coaches here aren't experts either. We have to rely on engineers and scientists that say this stuff is safe or it's not safe, you know? I mean, common sense sounds like to me it's not safe. I mean, again, it's just common sense.
Here's all I can tell you about the rubber. If just Google cell phones and cancer, right? If you Google it, you'd be crazy to think this.
No, I always have a speaker.
They were within 25 feet of your body.
Yeah.
But we do.
Right.
I'm okay with it. It's not small. I'm okay. You can get up and talk. I'm okay holding it. I don't mind holding it. My wife has one. My kids have one. Just the doctor will tell you you're crazy. It's going to cause brain cancer.
Right.
I get that. You have to make a decision as a committee whether you want to put.
Right, so, I mean, just from a coach's perspective, I mean, it really, Mayor, we're lucky that no one gets hurt. I mean, George can tell you, we have a bunch of coaches here, there are ground balls that I'm shocked kids aren't losing a tooth, an eye. It's really bad. It might look pretty from Johnson Avenue, but the field is a disaster. I mean, there are divots, it's just the clay is not, it's hard as a rock. It's just really dangerous. I mean, and as for the lights, I won't take up much more time. We absolutely need lights. I mean, you said there's no glare. The 5 people on Johnson Avenue that are going to be affected, Jerry Miston, whatever, you won't even know they're on, basically. And if we have a shut-off of 9:45 or 10 o'clock at night, it gives us coaches a lot more time to practice with the kids. And it's just, again, it's envy maybe from my point of view. Every town around here has it, from Little Ferry to Fairview to Fort Lee to Cliffside.
No, that's, we can't do that.
Yeah, so,
No, we can't do that.
I'm talking from a baseball perspective, but, soccer, if there's lacrosse in town, if there's tennis in town, basketball courts over there, my son uses also. I just think I prefer to go the safest route, and to me, would be, well, if that's the compromise that, the mayor and council are going to say, let's do half the field, let's try one field turf, let's try the other portion of the field, let's do grass, fine. But it can't be kept getting kicked down the road. Something has to be done, because someone's going to get hurt. I mean, it really is. These kids hit the ball hard, and our kids, I think, deserve what all these surrounding towns have. They have way more practice hours. There's way less, the rainouts here are ridiculous. You go there's puddles all over the field. I just hope that you guys realize that there's a lot of Little League coaches here and families here that want to see improvements to our practice, our practice facilities. I know there's only one in town. I just feel like, we're growing as a town. We're getting better in baseball. There's more people participating. Why not, set the standard maybe and put something down that I think our children deserve.
Thanks. From your perspective, from the town perspective, you're more comfortable as a town with the environmentally sensitive children do.
That's just my opinion. I hope everyone else,
Yeah, that's fine. No, and you made a great point about having more practice time, because I want to provide our children with more opportunities to participate in whatever sport that they do, soccer, or softball, or baseball, or we may even have lacrosse if we do things here. And I wanted that done because when our children get to high school, it becomes harder and harder for our children to make the high school teams because their peers in other towns are getting so much more playing time, so much more practice time. There is definitely a mute button on that. So our children are definitely falling behind competitively unless they join a club team outside of town, and
And I echo what you said before. I don't know which mayor or what town, but Tenafly,
it was Tenafly.
Edgewater,
I spoke
Little
to,
Ferry,
right,
they rave about it.
So I spoke to Edgewater, Fort Lee, and Tenafly mayors, and they're all telling me that this is the best money they spent. Now, I appreciate your comment about the crumb rubber fill versus cork. Personally, I'd rather go with the cork direction. It's going to cost us more money, and from what I'm understanding is that the cork infill has a biohazard because it retains organic waste. Right. Right, and the rubber is what the rubber.
Is there anything other than cork and sand infill? Is there anything more like organic or?
There's a couple of companies have come up with some kind of product called EnviroFill, or nobody's used it yet, so I don't know enough about to speak about it.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if that has something else to say.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
They want to know if you're putting lights on the basketball court also, and the tennis courts.
Was that part of the plan?
That was part of the plan,
Yeah.
right?
Well, the tennis courts, no, because the tennis courts are on someone's property.
Oh, we can't because they're on
The
somebody's
basketball courts are
property.
covered by lights.
Yeah.
The tennis courts are on the adjoining property. We lease the space from CNBC. They're actually not on our property. I guess you could approach them, but that's what works with you for. If you like, everything you like.
I mean, that's a good, I mean...
We can ask.
I think it's worth to approach them and see where...
I mean, it might help them as well, because they may want to have their employees be able to use it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Philip Choi. I live on 23 Roberts Road, Englewood Cliffs. Based on what I'm hearing today, I think there's a consensus that we have to do something, and I think your options and kind of high-level plan, provides improvements in safety and improvements in our playground, options for our seniors and children. The requirements of a hybrid option between grass and synthetic turf, or all synthetic turf, to me are requirements. There are requirements that will probably be documented, reviewed, and that level of detail is just not known. And I think that's why there's confusion. That's why people have certain conceptions of what the field may be. But I'm a project manager by training, and large projects with pages and pages and pages upon requirements are very, very difficult to execute on. And I'm sure you're an experienced person. You've done thousands of fields, and I've heard you speak many times, and you do it very well. But at the end of the day, there's a day-to-day person on the ground. Is that person you? Is that person a lieutenant? At the same time, there are stakeholders from the community. Are they involved? Are they going to be part of that project as well? When you build a house, GC may come up and say, what are these cabinets? What knobs do you want? I mean, and I know people in this room are going through construction right now, and it is an exhaustive process. And so my biggest concern of all this is I think we're gonna improve the fields, I think, based on what I've been hearing. But I'm concerned about the execution. We talk about 1 year. We talk about working with the schools and to, work with them to use their fields. But are we going to have the same conversation 2 years later? Do we have assurances that, within a year's time or a year and a half's time that we can actually have a field to play on? And that's to me a big concern. But at the same time, good things don't come without change and without improvement. So I'd love to hear, about use cases where you've done projects on time, before expected time, and potentially a project that was delayed.
So we have all the above. If you're around construction, you're going to have project delays, and project delays are caused by contractors. I work in the public world, so I'm bound by the local public contracts law. So, this mayor and council and myself, we're very handcuffed. A contractor can come on a job, not start working. We can try to take action against him, but as long as he falls within his time frame, we don't have much control. This field, when it was first done in '98, the guy went bankrupt around it. The field didn't get done for 2 years. It was a nightmare. We had to sue the bonding company. Then Mayor and Council Joe Creasy Sr. got involved with the attorney. He actually sued the company, and they brought in a company who went under again, and then the next company actually completed it. So, was it a success? No. Was it delayed? Yes, but it was out of our control. In our case, most of it's out of our control because we're bound by different regulations. We can watch and make sure it's done right. We can institute and tell them when it's not being done right, and we can decide whether to sue them or not sue them, really, where we are. So I can tell you that the guys at work, they don't make money if they don't get done quick.
Right.
These fields, they gotta go.
It's in your best interest. It's definitely in your best interest. And the last thing I'd just like to say about usability, I'm a coach, and I want to echo what Tom had said earlier. I've seen incidents on the field where there's a bad bounce and a hit a kid in the face or a hit it, and it's really trying to make the best and safest environment for our children. And when we talk about cork versus not, or crumb rubber, it's about mitigating risk. And if it costs a little bit more, then so be it. And that's something that we can't negotiate at all.
So I appreciate your comments. And in terms of timing, I don't think we fully answered that. The schedule that we were trying to adhere to was that for your opening day next season, this would be completed. Is that still what we're thinking?
So you would have to start this, for opening day next year for baseball, you would have to start this project in November.
Right. Okay.
You'd have to, if you did the field in grass, it would not be open. If you did it in turf, it would be open. So
What if it was a
started in
hybrid?
November.
What if it was a hybrid?
Is that for the larger full field?
Right, so anywhere you put grass down, the field has to sit and grow for 2 full seasons. In the 3rd season, you can open it. So, spring, summer, fall, winter. You have to have 2 full seasons. So we start in November, we shut down for the winter, shut down for the spring, and you start playing in the summer. And that's something to help because it's new stuff. So you still have to cut and fertilize it and maintain it while it's growing. That's going to be Marchburg.
And what about if it's a hybrid?
If the turf would be open and ready to go within 120 days. You play it instantly.
So you could start in November,
And
I'm
be
saying,
done in April.
but a hybrid, so the
The
grass portion
be shut down.
from November, and when would you be able to play on
You'll
it?
open up in the fall of 2018. That's
Almost a year.
Yeah, because opening in the summer, you're risking losing it because it's still a new sod, so it'd really be weather dependent. You could open it maybe, but we would never know until we got that season to see how hot the summer was. Do you
So
think
the
it has a lot to do with it? I would say safely, if you start in November, you couldn't open it until the fall of September. That would be a safe call.
I'm sorry, is that for, which one?
That's grass.
Grass.
That's really grass.
Oh, yeah, and then
Turf would be, you basically give the contractor either 90 or 120 days in the project. As soon as it's over, it's like,
and is the field usable if only a portion of it
Yes.
is?
yeah, like, so for instance, the Borough of New Providence, right now is doing Oakwood Park. There's a lower park and an upper park. The lower park is a whole synthetic turf field, baseball, soccer, and lacrosse. The upper field is a 90-foot baseball field. The 90-foot baseball field is a synthetic turf infield and a grass outfield. That's under construction, that portion, while the lower turf field is fully open and being used.
So you would, just hypothetically, whatever the project is that the council chooses, if you started in November, for the lights portion, would you be able to get that? Would that start in November also? So, I mean,
The whole project, yeah, the whole project.
the whole thing would start in November?
The whole project starts.
Really?
If you wanted to phase it and have one section open, we would build that into the contract.
Okay, and now I have a question, Mayor, I have a question for the administrator. With, how would we be able to work something like this, given, I know we have money in our capital budget, but, I mean, we have a portion of the amount. So, let's say that the council would want to undertake, this project and try and start in November. I'm just asking a question. Is that a possibility to do that?
It depends on what option you choose and how much the cost is. You only have fundability of $1 million currently in your operating budget.
Right.
So if you were to phase or award a portion and have an alternate, but I don't think if you went completely, you couldn't award the contract.
Could you do two phases, Andy?
So unless you were doing half the project and then the other half, but you didn't put enough in for these options. So you would be not capable.
You really need to decide.
Right, well, nobody was right. We couldn't.
You have to decide what you want to do first, and then I can start talking about what you want to get.
Okay, gotcha, okay, that's what I'm saying.
I think pretty well about what you're talking about.
Exactly.
I have a question for Richard. I don't know if we were able to use the upper school field, which is, I think you said after 4 or 5 and then the weekends. Do you know how much usage that would lessen on Whitty Field once we have that available?
Well, depending on what sports we would be able to send up there. I didn't look into that in detail, but
So the upper field is an undersized soccer field, and it really, maybe you can use for team ball in one corner, but, I mean, I went up there last November, and that field's in utterly horrific condition. I wouldn't play anything there. The baseball field is a hazard, the softball baseball is a hazard, so they'd have to redo it first, or you should not use it.
And we have practices for soccer there every fall, so every fall we have it, so.
Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to be heard? Yes.
Tony Morfett says 26 John Street. The traffic on Johnson Avenue, wouldn't it be smart to put in speed bumps on those streets that we just can't control? Obviously, and there are quite a few streets, and they go cliffs that we can't control. We could put speed bumps to stop it. Now, you want to put 25-car parking. That's like putting a pin in the pig. 25 cars is nothing if you have a game. I mean, really. I mean, we should look to see what we can use on the street, or what, 25-car parking, and you're paying a lot of money to make that lot.
Let me give you a little background, Mr. Wright. We did a traffic study as part of this. What our traffic guys recommended was allowing parking on both sides of the street, because that actually narrows the street, gets you a lot of parking. The off-street parking really gets the everyday user, the mom with the child, the person with the handicapped child, the dad that wants to walk at lunchtime. It gives them a place to be off-street, so the street's not occupied during the day. And when you have games, the street is a main part of your parking. I do agree with you that some type of speed table in the intersections.
100%. But it's not only Johnson, there are quite a few streets. I know my street, I almost got hit this morning. I mean, they use it like Daytona 500. They come down John Street with alacrity at 60 miles an hour. And they pass the light, they don't even stop to wait for the light.
Yeah, so I know you've complained before. I've relayed all your complaints
No,
to
no,
our
it's not-
police department, and
Believe me,
I'm
it's
asking
not
them
even
to
a
deal with it.
complaint.
Yeah.
It's, what I'm saying, it's not, I don't want to blame police department, council, this, I'm looking for a solution.
Right.
Put in a speed bump. Let SOB go through his windshield, I don't care.
Speed table.
Speed tape, pardon me. Yeah, whatever you want to call it. But here, if you want to save money, what I'm saying, and I agree with him, I understand what he's saying. A mother goes with the kid, she parks in the lot, she feels safe, it's nice. If you have parking on both sides of the street, I think you're doing the same thing, and we're saving quite a few bucks. Because how much would that lot cost us? With the drainage.
A lot estimates about $1,000 a street for service.
Correct. So that's $25,000 to $30,000, and that says that we have the sewer in place, which we don't. Because you're going to hook up to the sewer. And then we have to maintain it in the winter, plowing it. That's all I'm saying. We need
Yeah,
streets
the
better.
problem that, I'll tell you this, to somebody who's helping with the community events, and Mark will help. We almost had a problem with one of our community events last year because we did not have the parking. The police require us to have a certain amount of parking allotted if we want these community events. It's a dilemma that we face. We can't, it places a burden on us to just rely on street parking. Lizette knows, she worked with me, and thank God at the 11th hour, she was able to get a corporate owner to allow us to use their parking lot for one of our community events, or we were going to have a serious problem. Let me finish. We can't continually we shouldn't depend on everybody else to solve our problems, right? We need parking in this town. And that's, as those of us that are working on this.
Right, but you're the council. The police department only follows your mandates. If you say there's no parking on such and such a street, then the police department says there's no parking on such and such a street.
I don't think that's true, huh?
Oh, yes.
I think
Because if you put parking on both sides of Johnson, then the police department can't tell you can't use those spots.
They can park on both sides right now. They already can.
But they don't accept you during the daytime, so what are they complaining about?
We're talking about for larger events, Tony.
Right.
Larger events.
Okay.
700 people in the park, you know, huh?
Look, this is only my concern, and as far as the turf is concerned, or something, I'm in for grass, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. I mean,
Really, that's my opinion, because I think it's safer for the kids and whatnot. And if it costs you $75,000 a year, and you have a downside, you have a downtime for what? 6 months? Is that what it is?
No, it was longer. It was longer.
So it's 2 seasons. So it's, and then when I heard from your gentleman here who's doing the thing, he says that the girls don't want to play softball on Saturdays. Is that what you said? Right. They don't like practicing on Saturdays?
No, they have to.
Oh, they have to?
That's when they practice.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood you.
That's when they practice on Saturdays.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else wishing to be heard? Yes. I'm sorry. You go next, okay?
Hi, I'm Paul Hahn. live at 2 Sanford Drive. Actually, I'm glad you're having this meeting, and I think it's great. I actually think it's great to hear some of the ideas that you've come up with. Coming to prior meetings, some of these ideas were not there. I love the fact that you've thought about putting the lights on the other side of the field rather than close to the houses. I actually live in I'm one of the 5 people, actually, it's not 5 people, it's 5 families, or more like 10 families that live adjoining the field. It's not just a few people that are there. So these decisions actually, even though some kids may slide into the base, my kids are going to be living like a few hundred feet from these kind of areas for years to come, like 24/7. So when there are controversial studies about the safety of the chemicals in these kind of fields, they affect, my family more than any of probably your families. So it's a big concern to me, and obviously the risk reward equation for me is much more important than what, I don't know if your kids live close to one of these fields, or if you have kids, or...
You have 2 out of 10.
Yeah, do you live close to one of these? Do you have them sleeping a couple hundred feet from one of these fields? That's, so that actually, for me, then, I think it means the studies are much more meaningful when I'm looking at these studies. I don't want to just consider these studies to be, these are not fake news that are put out by kind of organizations with an agenda. These are organizations like the CDC or, major news organizations that have done big studies on some of these turf fields, and there's a lot of questions involved. I don't think we have any disagreement that there's a lot of questions involved. I don't know if we can go into anything with all these unresolved questions. But, I guess that's one point I want to make. The other, actually I wanted to make a couple of other points. One is that when I look at these fields, the Johnson Field, since I live right across from it, it's not actually sports that are the major use. But what I see is, the major use of this field is for the community, like kids playing and like people walking around the field. That's like the major use. And I don't know if like the 67-year-old men and women of this community that are walking around that field every day, do they want to be walking around like a synthetic field? It's just a little odd to me, because that seems to be a much greater use for this field, than the few hours each season that kids play sports. I know that these are our major sports fields, but probably the major use for these fields is more like as a park. And most people who want to go into a park want to go into a park with natural grass. That's just what I see. And then just in terms of I happen to also be a sleep doctor, so the lights issue is also another issue that kind of very much concerns me. I'm a sleep doctor, and you're talking about putting huge lights up across from my house. So the example of having the lights on in the hallway, and even though there's not like the spillage of light, it actually is not a lot of light that is required to suppress like melatonin and suppress your sleep. So just beware of that, because I think that has to be looked at, or at least for me that has to be looked at. I don't know if it really has to be looked at for everybody else, but to me that's like a major issue. And also I just wanted to see, are there any studies of, I know Cresskill and Fort Lee, and this is my third point, is their fields are kind of separated from the residences. They're not like really adjoining the houses, like right right on the field, as opposed to Whitfield. So I'm just wondering about if there are studies about, like, if there's any off-gassing from these fields, or like the air quality around these fields, because...
I would tell you, go to Tenafly, go to the municipal complex. There's a field at the municipal complex that has lights on it that's served, and it's surrounded by houses. It's been there for, I don't know, 10 years. I have no idea. We don't... if you don't want, if you're,
I guess,
worried about the...
I'm a physician, so, I mean, just visiting is not something that I'm interested in. I want to know the data. I want to know the science behind it. I want to know what the chemicals in the air are. I want to know the particle sizes and what's in there and how much is getting into the lungs. I mean, who cares what it looks like or who's right there? I don't understand that comment.
The issue is from rubber, correct?
No, it's anything synthetic that's not organically growing on the field. I mean, I don't see that. And one other comment is, in terms of the question between the cork versus the, like, synthetics, that, like the crumb rubber or whatever, if you put something synthetic there, if it gets infected, like if a fungus grows on it or a bacteria grows on it, just like when you have like an artificial hip or artificial knee, if those things get infected, they're much harder to get rid of any infection from. I'm just saying that, like you were saying, that these, like, just because it's synthetic, it's somehow sterile, but there's no way that's true. I mean, that it's less prone to infection or bacteria or harboring some kind of infection than with something cork. I think that's what you said before. But I don't think that's true at all. I think, in fact, it's the opposite. If something is synthetic or artificial, it's going to harbor an infection until you have to sterilize something that's inorganic. I mean, there's no way to get rid of it otherwise. That's just fairly scientific. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My name is Billy Theodorakis. I'm at 164 Middlesex Avenue. I coach. I'm an assistant coach with a lot of people in this room for the minor leagues, part of the Little League. I'm also an assistant coach for the 8U travel team, which we get a chance to see a lot of different fields as well as the minor leagues. I'm also a head coach for the softball girls, but more importantly, I'm a father of three. Okay, 10-year-old, 8-year-old, and 5-year-old. All three of them love to go to Johnson Field for various reasons. My youngest with the playground. My son, I can't pull the kid off the baseball field. Okay, and my daughter with softball. The one thing I want to say is, a lot of parents tell me, why is a Little League field in so much better condition than the softball field? And I've been talking to Richard a lot, and Richard's been great in helping me. I just came from the game today. Field looked great today, okay? But the Little League, there's a lot of men behind me, and one person in the doorway over there, that roll up their sleeves and they rake the field. Somebody actually went to Patterson, picked up 20 bags of dirt and brought it, made me help carry it into the room, okay? I'm an accountant. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, as an engineer, to tell you what to do. The only thing I do ask from the town, let's not shortcut anything. Let's get our kids out from in front of the TV playing stupid video games and iPads, okay? So put them out there. Do not shortchange anything. Put lights. I'm sorry for the residents around. Put lights everywhere. We lose time. We lose time. We lose games for rainouts. We lose games because it gets dark. It's embarrassing. I'm a softball head coach. We played our rec with Fort Lee. Okay, Fort Lee plays on Van Fleet Field around residents. They have lights. They have turf. The one thing that I just want to say about I think it's the crumb rubber. When the kids slide, they start breathing it. The thing that bothers me is when you come home, your house is filled with it. All right. I mean, the kids have their shirts tucked in. They untuck their shirt. There's this stuff everywhere. I've had girls stop and pick the rubber out of their eyes. Okay, it gets in their eyes. We play soccer, same thing. So if Cork's the right way, and obviously our engineer's not opposed to it, and it's just a money issue, let's just do it, okay? Johnson Field's one of the nicest fields you drive by, it attracts everybody's attention. So we have the property, we have the field, let's not shortchange these kids. And the other thing is, if anybody wants to discuss, the one thing that's real important to me is we have to schedule it properly. We cannot lose one season. If you look at any Englewood Cliffs team, I don't care, minors, majors, T-ball, they're all in the championships of some sort. The records are phenomenal. Girls softball, it's a work in progress. We need to work to build up the girl population. We only have 2 teams. We need to get more. Maybe if we have lights and we do stuff, maybe we'll attract more. We rely on Fort Lee, actually, for the girls because they have a lot more. It's a larger community, obviously. For some reason, we can't attract that many girls. I'm not quite sure how we can work on that. But let's not shortchange anything here. Whatever we have to do, let's do. If it's cork, put the cork in. And as Tom Polowitz said, I do like the dirt. It gives a real feel for baseball instead of the grass. But if we can do some combination, if that's possible, I'll leave it to the engineers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes.
Good evening, Tony Senator, 36 Rock Road. I apologize for being late.
Guys win?
We won the Major League Championship.
Congratulations.
And tomorrow, my team will play Tom's team for the minor league interleague championship. So we took both championships this year.
Very good.
So,
Congratulations.
My biggest concern is this. I've never been to a turf field that is not fenced in, okay? So are we putting 10-foot fences around the field? I personally think that would be a travesty up at Johnson Field.
That's not.
Okay. So they're not going to be fenced in?
Different than what we have now.
They're not going to be fenced in and locked?
No, it should be just, your complex has a fence around, that would be the same.
All right, because most of these fields are fenced in, and, you know, I'm just concerned about kids taking bikes and ripping up the field. I'm also concerned about the size of the turf. You know, I'm for the turf. You know, I just think it's a massive undertaking. I don't know if we necessarily need a big boy turf field. You know, I wasn't here for the beginning. I don't know what you guys spoke about. I do understand the concerns of everybody else. I want to keep it as green as possible. Tom's concerns are serious. I know we've been, beating a dead horse here now for a long time, and some decisions need to be made, but I just hope you guys decide to do something to compromise with everybody in town. And like I said, our field, our Little League field, it's not in the greatest condition, but I'll be honest, it's better condition than some other towns, so I don't know how we're going to spend the money here, but the fact that we're looking to improve the situation, I think we're on the right track, and that's all I really wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to be heard? Yes.
Lauren Eastwood, Four Willow Drive. We've talked a lot about baseball, but I really think that the entirety of Woody Field needs to be lit, because I live up there, and I see the fathers and mothers trying to coach soccer at 5 o'clock in the afternoon when the sun is almost down in the fall. And we also need to address the ability to play soccer and to play baseball early in the season, and all these fields. The soccer field has to be lit, or, what's the point? The other thing is traffic. Traffic on Johnson Avenue has been a problem since as long as we've been living here, and probably before. 2 mayors ago, we received a letter in the mail in our neighborhood. There had been complaints about speeding on Johnson Avenue. So the late Mayor Parisi had sent out the police to investigate this situation. And the letter we received was, we have heard your complaints, and the police have studied it, and they have determined that 70% of the speeders come from your neighborhood. So that if you people don't want speeding on Johnson Avenue, you should stop speeding. That being said, the one time I do not see speeding on Johnson Avenue is when there are games at the field, because then there are cars parked on both sides of the street, and Johnson Avenue is so narrowed that it is not possible to speed. So I think rather than paving over part of the park for a parking lot. We should be encouraging people to park on Johnson Avenue and slow the traffic down, because it seems to be the only thing that works.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Deborah Sabari, 106 Hollywood. What's the show's name? Andy. If we were to put the parking lot there, this is your recommendation, this plan too. So where would the park go? Actually, where the field is now?
The park would go in the area of the field that's currently kind of a foul area of that existing field.
Is that where the walkway is?
No, the walkway does cut through, that's the existing walk through here, and we kind of bend it around the 3 trees.
So it would be closer to the baseball fields,
The park.
to the park? Yeah, the park
It would be
itself
close
would
to-
now
it
be
would
sitting...
close to the
So is there any danger there in...
It's so far out in the far side, I mean, you'd have to extra fencing up on this side, but, right now it's where it's...
But we could protect the children that are playing in there. So if you went with turf field, could you change your mind 10 years from now, we have to replace it? And put grass? Yeah? So,
Grass, 10 years from now, change it to that turf.
yeah, I have a lot of personal concerns. My children grew up here and played on a grass field, and it never seemed to be a problem. I understand that we want to, come into, the century and possibly, make it more advantageous for our sports teams to have turf or, basically a sports center. It looks like what's happening here to me, in my opinion, is that a park is now becoming a sports center, which will benefit a portion of the community. So, that being said, is it possible to put a referendum out and have the community decide if this is how they would like to see this amount of money be spent? Because this is a lot of money we're talking about. At a minimum, with grass, it's $2.5 million, and if it's turf, how much is it? Like, what's the difference in pricing, and would we...
You have to be careful with the estimates, because it depends on what you decide to do, so if you...
Okay, so let's say a minimum. If you did a mishmash of a little bit of everything,
If you need to go with everything, you probably spend about $2.5 million.
and that's a lot of money. So, in my opinion, I think you should leave it up to the taxpayers to decide how they feel about it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes. Here we go.
Yvonne Favaro, 70 Johnson Avenue. I would like to take this discussion into a different direction, following up on Dr. Hahn's initiation of concerns about the environment. Every time you cover over the soil, you decrease the porosity and so you increase the runoff. And so you just make the situation worse. If water is a problem, then covering the field with an imporous material is only going to make that worse. I like what Dr. Hahn said about the fact that people go there to be with nature. I don't think they're really going to look at, want to see plastic. They could do that at home. So my concern is, first of all, the environment and passive recreation. All of this has been a discussion about sports, and I understand that. I love sports. My kids played here. We had 8 Little League teams, 8 minor league teams, and there never seemed to be a problem about rainouts. We made them up. Rains. So I think maybe we're taking this to an extreme, but I had what I wanted when my kids were young, so I certainly understand the people who are having their kids play now want the best for their kids. But I come here to speak for the trees. So, when I first started with the Shade Tree Commission, the field was just recently done. And as a matter of fact, Andy, you and I had several discussions about how the regrading was going to damage the trees that were there. There were no young trees there at the time, they were all mature trees. And as the Shade Tree Commission chair, I know we took about 20 of those trees that you graded a little too high, had to take them down, an expense to the town. So I would like to ask that since there's no mention in your report about trees at all, that I would like to have more specifics about which trees are coming down. And by the way, they're all numbered, so you could tell me exactly which ones they were. And perhaps we could have a discussion, and maybe with the project director also figure out a way that we could not impact against the trees that you are keeping. Never mind the ones that you feel that you have to remove.
I mean, as soon as the mayor and council decides on the option, we get to the preliminary design, we can literally we surveyed all the trees, we know they are. We can literally take the concept and try to work on the trees. What I'm hearing is we want to do that, so that's what we do. We're just not at that level of detail yet. We do have them all located, so we know where they are, what numbers they are. We have them all surveyed, so the idea is once we decide what you want, then we'll work the concept into the save the trees.
Yeah,
I have some very mature trees that you can't sacrifice.
I've been working on this for a couple of years, and we figured out where all the trees are, and we mapped them out, and I have here... I worked with your map, thank you very much.
I know they could really go with
Okay, we'll take it. Actually, it's not up to me, it's up to Lauren Eastwood, who is now chairman of the Shade Tree Commission. The fact that these trees will be impacted is important. And the fact that the people walking around there, and I live across the street from the field, so I see exactly what Dr. Hahn was saying, that during the day, there are a lot of people on that field. You see a lot of people from the local businesses walking around, and talking about benches, the Shade Tree Commission built several benches that we used for a tree that was damaged during the construction, and we had to remove. Those benches need a bit of work, by the way, Mark. So I would like to offer my services as a certified arborist and meet with you and your project manager and see if we can minimize the damage to any trees. Grading and trenching in particular are concerns. Redoing the sprinkler system, I assume that'll have to be completely redone.
Yes.
And making sure that the trees that remain receive the right amount of water, because the Shade Tree Commission is actually the ones who put in that sprinkler system on the outside, not on the inside, but on the outside. We worked very hard on that for a long time. And it's fine to redo it because we added trees, so it needs to be upgraded. And I understand that there's no improvement without change. But I certainly would expect that you would do your very best to protect all the trees that are there. And about moving trees, there is a limited success with that, depending upon the size of the tree.
Agreed.
So I would certainly like to be involved with this if
Well, I think in the interest of good order, what I want to do is, we have a Shade Tree Commission that is working with Andy, so Mrs. Favaro, what I would like you to do, if you want to assist, speak to the chairperson of that committee, which is Lauren Eastwood. Okay? I think that's the way, in the interest of good
I
order.
understand that there've been several invitations, to,
Yeah, I just want to, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, let's say that's not until, again, when the mayor and council decides what they're going to do, then we're going to actually produce a plan for that. These are all various proposals. Once we do that, then we would be involved with the environmental commission to kind of say.
Shade tree.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, look, we all love our children, we all love our trees, we're going to make this work for everyone, okay? You're not the only person who likes trees, Mrs. Favaro.
I would be also concerned about the environment. The more that...
We also love the environment, Mrs. Favaro.
Pave it over, the more problems we have. And of course, with all this, publicity about global warming, which I thoroughly believe in, the less pavement you have, the better we are. And even if we do just a little bit, we're better off making that contribution by not paving over. And I'm speaking particularly about the parking lot. I really don't think that the parking lot is necessary. People have been parking in front of my house since I've been living there, and I have no problem with that. As long as they don't block my driveway, that's fine. And you can go all the way up to Sage Road, Laurie Drive. So there's plenty of room for cars. So I really object to the parking lot. Other than that, I'm anxious to hear what your new plan is. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to be heard? Just raise your hand. Yes.
Karen Geiger, 270 Alfred. Two questions. One, I'm just curious in Mazer Consulting how you get paid for this project. I know you've done the study for $30,000. What is the way in which you expect Mazer to be reimbursed? Are you getting a percentage of the contract amount? Are you overseeing the contract? Do you plan on bidding on contracts? I'm just curious.
The same way we do everything else in town. So if they do this project, they'll ask us for a proposal. We'll give a proposal to the mayor and council to design it, and then oversee construction, and they either approve it or not. It's the same every project we do.
So this would be competitively bid, or could be?
So it's professional.
Okay. So you would get, or whatever firm is hired would get a percentage of the anticipated construction cost? How does it work? I'm curious, I don't know.
So it depends on the job. We price the job based on how long it takes to do it. We bill per hour. So we'll see, it's going to take us so many hours to design it. We produce a product, we'll bid services. And then when that's done, then the standard construction inspection will provide.
So you're not working like a construction management firm in this, getting a percentage of the cost? Okay.
Well, I agree.
I just didn't know. The lighting. In your plan that you presented, you use Mosca Lighting, which is a superb firm. I'm very familiar with them. They do most of the sports lighting in this tri-state area, if not in the country. What makes you think that Mosca Lighting would be successful in meeting a bid? Because there are big differences in the lighting provided by Mosca and those of its competitors.
Well, you would spec it out, wouldn't you, Andy?
Yeah, we do a lot of these. And Mosca Lighting in their product they're always the bidder. There's a couple of lighting companies, GE Lighting, Bubble Lighting, they try, and they have not forged into the boundaries to beat Mosca and its cutoff values for their lights.
I know that.
Nobody else can beat it, so they're always a little bigger too, which is amazing.
But how are you doing, I mean, you can't,
Don't worry about it now.
okay, they are under state contract, okay. Now, your estimate where you said it would be $350 to light the Little League field, I spoke to Mosca, they said 4 lights would be less than $200.
Well, I'm assuming...
Including installation and an LED. They only make that's what their rep told me. but I'm not going to argue. I just wanted to get a parameter. I wanted to get a parameter. So you're dealing with a number of 250 or 200 to 350 for the Little League field only, depending on how many polls and if there's some successful bidders and whatever, versus $1,250,000 for the whole field. The playground. I had occasion to visit the playground. I visited it with my grandson. It's always a wonderful experience to go to any park with a child, because you watch them on the surface, you watch them play, you watch them experiment, and I watched the other children there. One, it was not overcrowded. It actually had very limited use. But also, the equipment is superb. Why are you recommending replacing it?
If you were, I don't know if you were here earlier, so that playground did that playground. I think
I know you did.
It's a great product. It was a Game Time product, and Game Time's still in business to this day. The playground doesn't meet the ADA regulations as of 2000.
But that's the entrance to the playground.
No, that's the structure itself.
So why don't you build an ADA compliant as an additional, the items that you have on that playground are in excellent condition. I mean, I went through each one of them, blessed are grandchildren. And they work for the kids. There were 5 different age groups involved in playing on that playground when I was there, and they were using the various equipment. So if you have to, it's one thing to say, I'm going to do it de novo because it's defective, it's a danger, it's not state-of-the-art, particularly if it's a danger. But if you have a problem with compliance with an ADA standard, there are other ways to comply rather than redoing the whole playground and getting rid of all this very good equipment. There has to be.
So you have to get rid of all the equipment you own. The equipment is transferable to another location. If you're going to go into this park and have to move it, because we're going to put a parking lot in, let's say we don't want to leave it, but you still need to address the 33% non-compliant with ADA accessibility. What I will tell you is...
But that's access to the park, playground portion.
No, it's access to the park and access to the set itself. So what the regulations say is that if I'm a person with disabilities, 33% of that play set has to be available to me. As a person in a wheelchair, or as a person that walks on sticks, or a person that has other disabilities like sight, like that. I learned a lot about this. It was very helpful. I sit on the Tenafly Disability Committee. And I learned by sitting in a room with 4 other people in there that actually have disabilities, what it's like to not be able to use the park. Now, Tenafly's, almost all the parks are compliant. I'm telling you, it's a humbling experience. In my opinion, we should make it compliant. If you want to move these pieces somewhere else, people went to a school are still good, but they're not compliant.
But we don't have this someplace else. We don't have the, that goes to the heart of our community. And with all due respect, Mr. Hippolyte, you don't live here, we do. Our community is a small community. It's predominantly, we try and keep it suburban, very suburban. We have our teams. My children played on teams. Many people in the audience had their children who play on teams. And we love our community, and we love that the kids can play on them. But we also know, those of us who perhaps are a little older, that science is something that's changing. And when the prevailing wisdom out there, and when you look at fields across the country, my experience with fields across the country is that turf fields are being ripped out in schools and in school facilities, certainly in New York State where I am most familiar with them, because there is concern about the health to the children. And when I make decisions in the days when I did, my concern was not with knowing something. You want to know something, you can never know something for sure. But if there's a possibility, even a remote possibility, that a child's health will be endangered because of something that we are doing to something that we as a community are doing. This is not a personal decision to put carpeting in a home, which if I want to have something that's carcinogenic, I may be a Looney Tune, but it's my prerogative. You are dealing with the welfare of children. all the children. And I don't know how anyone, with all the literature out there that questions this, can advocate for a crumb field or any turf field. Grass worked for my kids. They all played on it. My kids were all involved in all the teams in this town, softball, girls softball, the whole gamut. I found all the silly trophies sitting in my basement when I was cleaning it out. They all participated. They went on to high school. They did sports at their high schools, and they went on to college, and I consider them they didn't do sports in college, but they learned. They're now people that I'm proud of. I think most of us as parents want to say, looking down 20 years from now, that we're proud of what our children accomplished. They don't need turf to accomplish that. They need good grass. We need a good field. There's no doubt in my mind that the field has to be redone. The part that I was playing T-ball on was full of weeds, full of God knows what. The Little League field looked great. It really did. I have to commend the Little League people. Whatever they did a great job. It looks like a nirvana sitting in the waste of a lot of that space. But good grass always was a possibility, and it has to be something that we strongly consider, because we can't just look at 2 years. We have to look at a lifetime of these kids. And we don't know what the science is going to show 5 years from now or 10 years from now. When I grew up, cigarette smoking was not dangerous to your health. Surprise. Smoking was something everybody did. I didn't know anybody who didn't smoke. Surprise. We can't be too careful. Thank you.
Mr. Hippolyte, Ms. Geiger just stated some opinion as if though it were fact. What is the actual reality of schools ripping out turf fields? Do you know? She made it sound like the whole country is rolling up their rugs.
We haven't done, we only in North New Jersey, we have not removed a turf field with grass back. I don't know of any places that have done it.
Okay, so then Ms. Geiger's opinion stated as fact is just that, it's her opinion?
I don't know of it.
Okay, no facts. Yes. Jesus.
I'm Mary O'Shea, 12 Irving Avenue. I'm sure that the council and the recreation director, the engineer, and everybody involved will choose from the 4 options and pick one that they feel is suitable. I personally like grass. If part of the field needs to be synthetic of some type, I would hope you would use the cork rather than the rubber. And rather than 70-30, I'd rather it 30-70. If the diamond for the Little League field needs to be synthetic and cork, I'd rather see the softball field and soccer fields and the rest of the park to remain grass. I think that you should do the smaller amount synthetic, if any, and the larger amount grass. When Dr. Hahn talked about the carcinogen effect of the rubber, we have to realize he's a pulmonary specialist, and if he says that he feels that those things are questionable, I think we have to listen to that. What Mrs. Geiger said about smoking is very true. I used to smoke. I smoked when I was pregnant. I smoked in the car with my kids. If they complained, they said, "You'd have to walk." And I used to smoke all the time. I mean, really. And I stopped smoking in 1990, and I'm glad I did. But at the time, I didn't believe any of it. The same way, my father died from asbestos in his lungs, and asbestos was a great insulator. It was used in all the ships in World War II, insulating the pipes. He worked in boilers his whole life. One of his fellow Navy men wrote to my mother and said, we had a pipe break down in the boiler room, and when the asbestos was loose, he said it looked like snow, and we had to shovel it up. So, but asbestos wasn't going to damage you, yet it goes in your lungs and stays there for 20, 30 years, and then it kills you. So I really think that putting an artificial surface on the natural ground is not the best idea. And I would rather see you spend the money on grass maintenance, sod, whatever, and, you know, if you have to keep redoing parts of it during the year or every other year, I think you should do it. I like the idea of the drop-off area for, dropping off kids at the field as a safe place to let them out of the car. With the playground, I had seen, some, playground equipment on the internet where wheelchairs can actually be accommodated on the swing sets. And I think that handicapped children should have the same opportunities for play value as healthy children. And I also had seen something 2 or 3 years ago where that was in Europe, where they had exercise equipment that was for adults, where they had these stationary pieces around in the field where people could stand and they could go like this with their legs, and there was a series of things, and I think that something like that should be incorporated into the program here. People don't have to go to a gym. They can actually use the equipment around the field. So I just hope that everyone gives it thorough consideration, and I'm sure you will ultimately make a decision that you feel is right. And my kids grew up here. My sons played police clinic, Little League. They were on the first soccer teams that started. My daughter played softball. I think the difference is, years ago, the kids only played interleague in town. We didn't have traveling teams that went to Fort Lee or any other town. We just played locally. And that's probably the difference in some of the usage that you have now compared to then. But we just had the grass and it worked fine. Thank you.
The only thing I would just say on land is...
The what?
The only thing I'll add to what you just said, and most people don't realize, is when we do a field, we convert it from grass to synthetic turf, let's say we make a conversion. The grass and soil that comes up that's existing is removed as contaminated. Because the fertilizers you use contaminate. So it goes to a landfill as contaminated soil. So I know there's a concern about synthetic turf. The same concern exists on the grass, we just never talk about it. You can't even put the fertilizers down without license.
Right.
It's licensed material. You can only put certain ones down with license.
Well, no, I mean, Paramus had a lot of problems because they had the farms out there, and they used all those fertilizers, and they found it around the swim club and the schools and everything, and they had to dig up all the dirt and take it away. I understand that, but I still prefer grass. It's softer. I worry about the kids when they play soccer. They have shorts on, and they go down on the ground when it's artificial. It's going to hurt them more than grass, okay? And grass and dirt is a little softer.
Is there anyone else? Yes.
Hi. You gotta excuse me because I'm not much of a speaker, but I'm a cancer survivor. And they gave me, I tried to find out why. I was a trail driver, and there's a lot of companies that had chemicals, but they never could tell me exactly what the cause was. And you're talking about finding what the cause is or the problem. You're never going to find it. No doctor, no lawyer, no engineer is ever going to specifically say what the cause is. I've been trying for 40 years to find out what mine was. So, you're beating a dead horse. If you save only one kid from getting cancer, it's well worth it. Because I love when they give you, 1,000,000 to 1 chance. But ask the one person who got it. That 1,000,000 to 1 is bullshit in plain English. Because the one person getting it has it, and the other 900, it doesn't make any difference to them. They're the ones suffering. I have a problem every single day because of the cancer. And it's vicious. I don't get mad, I get furious because of it. My patience doesn't exist anymore. And as far as spending the money, I despise when somebody says, I'm willing to spend more to do this, or I'm willing to spend more to that. Sure, everybody's willing to spend it if you have to. But if you don't have to, don't spend it. Think twice, 3 times before you do spend it, and do it right, and maybe you could do it in stages rather than do it all at one time. Instead, you have a 6-room house, you don't have the money to do 6 rooms, you do 1 room. Then the next year, you do another room. You don't do 6 rooms all at one time, so if it's feasible to do it in stages or periodically, why not go that route if it's possible? Okay?
Thank you, sir. Can you just, for our record, state your name and address?
Ted Tufano, 8 Marjorie.
Thank you. Yes.
730 Floyd Street, Beatriz Aniso. I think that simply by the fact that our field, we only have 1 field in our town, my personal opinion is just because of that, we should try to conserve the greener atmosphere, since there are more families involved, not only doing sports, but also spending time there in the field. I love grass, however, I do agree that the field needs a lot of improvements. So, but those improvements can be done whether we choose grass or turf, but it's definitely not something that needs to be done. And as a mother of 2 boys, I would be concerned about the toxic substances that the turf could contain. I think that if there are studies out there saying that it might be the cause of getting cancer, but probably it's not confirmed, I think it's worth just, opening our eyes and saying, well, they might be there for a reason. Probably we will not see them right away, but, it's a precautionary measure. I think that would be my main concern, or probably just upgrading the Little League field with turf using cork. Probably that would be a good idea. But that's, of course, my personal opinion.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard? Yes.
Hi, Maria Valari, 45 Jane Drive. First of all, I'd like to thank all you guys sitting up there, trying to improve our fields and make it great for the children to play. Obviously, my children are grown and don't need the field anymore, but it's nice to see that we continue to try to improve that for them. I wanted to say that I was happy to hear that you're moving the trees that were donated, or you're doing something with that, because I think that should be done for those people and the loved ones that they planted them for. I did hear somebody speak about how much this project is going to cost. And so I was thinking back to when our field was fixed twice. Our field was worked on to get rid of this water situation many, many years ago. I believe Mrs. Jerome was in charge of those projects at the time. I also recall having a beautiful park with lovely, lovely trees, and I know everybody is concerned about the trees, as I was when I saw those amazing, majestic trees that have been there for God knows how long be taken down so that we can now look at and see New York City from our park. We did have a lovely park at that time, and it would have been great if they had fixed the problem with the drainage of the fields. So I hope that whatever you guys decide to do, whether it's stage 1, 2, 3, and 4, that you do take into consideration the turf situation. Maybe a combination of both would be great. I'm not for the parking, and my concern is that I don't think 27 parking spaces, I'm sorry? Whatever it is, I feel like, what we need to do is do something about Johnson Avenue. Let's put the speed bumps up there. Let's do something to stop people from, unfortunately, that traffic is coming from Englewood, is coming from everywhere. It's not just the residents of this town that are speeding, although I'm sure there's quite a few of those, too. I wanted to find out, I heard the question about how much is this costing us? How are we going to fund it? Unfortunately, if I'd known that question was going to come up, I would have liked to have done some study of the past and see how much it cost us to fix those fields when my children were younger, and how was it funded? Were there bonds issued? So, let's try to work together. Okay, so obviously, we do things the way they're supposed to be done, and it's wonderful to want to know how things are done, but let's not forget the fact that every administration has done things in the past and have done whatever they had to do, whatever they thought was the right thing to do. So I hope that, everybody doesn't come down so hard on this board, because I think that they are trying to do the best for our town, and let's get the kids out there to play. That's the most important thing. If they fall and get hurt, guess what? That's part of being a child. My son played soccer for Bergen Catholic and broke his hand, and my daughter was figure skating and broke her wrists. I mean, we can't put them in a bubble. They need to get out there. They need to play, whether they're getting sand in their eyes or they're getting scrapes on their knees. The point is to get them out there to play. And to say that it's just for play's sake isn't right either, because this is what sparks children to become great football players and great soccer players and great baseball players. So it isn't just to get out there and have fun, but it's also to instill in them maybe a love for something. I think we have 2 kids from Englewood Cliffs who are playing for the major leagues. I mean, it started at Whitfield. That's where it started. And so I hope that, we keep in good spirit with everything and move forward and get a great job done. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes.
Lynn Norton, 9 Willow Drive. Very interesting comments tonight. I think we have a lot of different ideas than we had in the last meeting. So I think it's good to have that. I did have one question, and don't take this as being a silly question. It's just something I was wondering as you were saying it. I was thinking back to the skin field, which is where the baseball is, the older kids' baseball is played, and the softball field, which is also a skin field, and actually even the Little League field. It seems to me that the majority of baseball, having watched it for, I can't tell you how many years, takes place on the clay. Not much of baseball is actually wear and tear on the field. As a matter of fact, I was watching a softball game just last week, and I don't think one ball went to right field. So basically, all you had was your right fielder standing out there, which is not a lot of wear and tear on the field. Granted, softball is a lot of soccer is a lot of wear and tear, but I don't think you can really compare the ball sports to soccer. I mean, it's not really a lot of wear and tear on a field at all. It doesn't matter how many you have on there, even especially with the little ones. They're lucky if they're making it to first base. So when we talk about wear and tear, it would seem to me, and I do agree with Mary. Wow. I know. I agree with you on a lot of points you made. But, I think the grass is important, and I think keeping the greenery, we know it was, I think you gave the number of $1 million to, replace the grass on the field.
2.5 total.
Wait, we're not talking lights or anything. We're just talking straight grass,
If you just replace the rest of it,
which is actually the money we happen to have in the budget today, which is a nice thing. So if we keep the grass, I understand that you do have rainouts, and I do understand, I mean, the only one who's been on the field longer than we have probably is Tom. So, and I have utmost respect for him as a coach, and I certainly worked with Andy. So I think that there is a shot that grass will work, because, again, it's just soccer. And if you had lacrosse, that would be a lot of wear and tear. And it's soccer, which is the biggest wear and tear on the kids when it's turf. Now, playing football, you had the luxury of wearing pants. Playing baseball, you had the luxury of wearing pants. Playing softball, you have no pants, well, you have shorts. And playing soccer, you have shorts. And I've seen those turf burns, and they are nasty. I mean, I don't hear the kids complain about playing baseball on turf. They don't. They enjoy it, it's, as you say. But the rest of the sports are really brutal, especially if you have a goalkeeper, which I did, and do, because he still plays. The burns are tough, and it does get hot. There's no question about it. It's not going to be the same temperature as playing on grass. And regarding the fertilizers, you do have the option of organic fertilizers, and that just goes into the cost of maintaining the field.
just raise the cost.
And, I mean, I know we have a soccer group that plays, they have very few Englewood Cliffs adults on Sunday mornings, but nobody else is using the field on a Sunday morning. So, I mean, that permit goes back years and years and years.
It's not actually a permit.
Pardon me?
It's not actually a permit.
Oh, it used to be a permit. So perhaps it's not a permit anymore, but in the olden days, it was a permit. So that's wear and tear on the field. But the nicest wear and tear was Mr. Casada's group. Every afternoon after school, they were out playing football, on the flag football or whatever on the field. I mean, that, to me, is really what the field is for. It's for those kids who don't want to play in high school, or they don't enjoy, you know, they're just not competitive sports players. These guys used to have a blast. There were 20, 30 kids would meet at Johnson Field every afternoon after school, and they would just have fun. No matter what, but they could, because, you know, for a couple of years there was schools using it, so it precluded them from going out. But it's always nice, my feeling was that the option should always exist for the kids to be able to do that. So, very strong proponent of grass, and we all know that cancer can come up and bite you, and you want to take all precautions that you can to keep it from doing that, because they just don't know. Regarding the lights, and again, I'm going to agree with somebody I don't usually agree with, Mrs. McMorrow. While I don't know that, I would say no lights.
Batting 1,000 today.
And actually, it's more because when you guys are playing on the field, and it used to be great when I was up there, we worked the snap, we did it all, you know, we were there. I wasn't sitting in the backyard of somebody's house, and I happen to live within striking distance of the field. And I hear play-by-play. I get it, it's in my backyard. And, you know, that play-by-play ends at 8 o'clock. But when that play-by-play is going on 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, that's really interrupting my quiet time, my enjoyment of sitting out in my backyard. And this is how I bought my house. This is how it's always been for years and years and years. And I would definitely lose some of the enjoyment of sitting out there when the games are going on into the later hours where I appreciate the quiet. And the other thing you don't necessarily, you think about the light, but you don't think about the noise. It brings cars, it brings people, they're talking, they're laughing, they're screaming, they're whatever, you have it's just interrupting the lives of people who live around the park. And they didn't buy their houses this way, so it's really not fair to interrupt that enjoyment. Now, you did bring up possibly putting it in the back.
Right.
That would interfere less, and if you could have parking coming from the back, that would interfere less as well. But I wouldn't want to be trying to get my kids to do homework or go to bed or whatever at 8 o'clock at night when there are games going on at the field. They're going to hear it. You know, specifically like Dr. Hahn's house, or specifically, Jerry Mitt's house, or the Favara's house. You have people all over the streets, and, I have them too. Every time there's an event, they're all the way down Willow Drive. So I think you should consider that. And I also liked Mary's idea. You do a little at a time. We have $1 million, you do $1 million. You don't have to do it all at once. But if we do it all at once, Mrs. Sabari, as she said, have a referendum. Make sure the town is in favor of it. Make sure everybody wants to spend that kind of money. Because we have competing priorities. I mean, we may have some other massive flooding situation that's going to cost $2 million, $3 million. We may have some other major issue going on in town that we don't know. The roads could collapse. I remember the day that a fire truck went through into the water main. There are issues that happen in town, and I think we have to not put all of our eggs in one place, do it slowly.
Miss Norton, may I ask you a question? And it's funny, I had shown this to Andy, the nice thing when you're moving, you find all these things that you packed away and you don't realize you have, and I've just found so many papers that I had gotten in the past, and this happens to be, and I showed it to Andy, because it had his name on it too. At that time, he had been working with Boswell, and it's the project that you guys worked on.
That was before my time, but yeah.
2001?
Yeah.
You were not on the council. Okay, so, but the interesting thing to me with this project was, the amount of money it cost.
Again,
hold on,
I'm
just making it the amount of money it cost, and I believe it was way over $1 million, and for back in 2001, total, I think there were 2 or 3 different bonds that they had to, because they had needed additional monies. Andy, we were talking about. Regardless, it was about almost $1.5 million that was spent total back in 2001. So we're talking about over 15 years ago. So, and that was for grass, okay? Clearly, whatever was done, I went back and I saw my records from 2010. So from 2001 to 2010, when I was on the council then, the field was already a mess. So we're talking about from 2010 until now, and we're talking about this same subject for 7 years. It's not working. Now, I am appreciative of hearing every single one come up and give their opinion, and that's wonderful, but I didn't hear one solution. So let me just, if I may, hold on.
$75,000 a year was a solution.
Excuse me, let me just, that's not, because if it was a solution, it would have been done in the past. It's not, it doesn't work. Let me, if I may.
Okay, I'll let you finish.
In 2010, and Mark can attest to this, we met on the field, on site, with Boswell Engineering at the time, and other representatives from companies, and told us what had to be done. And the same thing that Mr. Hippolyte, who wasn't around then, is saying now, was said then. The usage on the field is too much. You have to solve the usage dilemma, and then still pay that $75,000 a year. So while I'm not opposed to all grass, if you can find a solution of how you're going to have those fields in pristine condition as everyone should play on it. They shouldn't be playing with all those divots. I've seen those balls pop up and hit the kids in the faces the way it does. The fields are not in good shape, and they haven't been since 2010. It needs to be corrected. Your proposal is not solving the problem. So while we are in agreement, all I'm saying is, the problem has to be solved. No one did a referendum back in 2001. They spent $1.5 million, and we're in the same position we are now, 15 years later.
All right, 2001 happened. Like, you guys have to get over the fact that there was life before your administration. So 2001 is ancient history. We are here today.
Correct.
So here today, we are saying, and we don't have the amount, anyway, regardless, if we put down grass and we actually take care of that grass at $75,000, and we watch the usage, we let it rest. Rodney would never let anybody on the field until till opening day. Rodney was tough. And you know what? When we started Little League, and Little League now is pristine. The Little League field is beautiful. Nobody, anyone who walks by, it says the Little League field is great. The rest of the field isn't because it doesn't get the
But
attention.
their own coaches
It
just said
never
that.
got the attention.
Their own coaches just said it looks great, but it doesn't play well because of the bounces, the bad hops.
And that too can be fixed.
Okay, so let's just...
So anyway, so this is my opinion. For what it's worth, take it with, I know you're not going to take it, Mayor, I'm not, but that's okay.
No, I just want facts.
I feel that have said it. and I
Right,
just-
thank you. But there was a lot of opinion stated as fact, and that's,
As you
yeah.
usually do, I learned from you.
Nope. Anybody else? So we've had 19 speakers, plus council. So is there anyone else that wants to be heard and make it an even 20? No, you already had a chance. Yes. No, you don't have the floor, sir. He has the floor. Mr. Casada, name and address.
Daniel Casada, 11 Connor Drive. I've lived in this town since kindergarten. I've played baseball, soccer, basketball, like Mr. Norton said. After school every day, we played football, flag football. I recently tore my shoulder, or we would still be playing football. I'm 25 years old, so I'm going to keep this nice and short. I appreciate everyone's opinion here. If you're not going to play on turf in Engle Cliffs, you're going to play on turf somewhere else. It's as simple as that. I'm a fan of turf and lights. I know there could be a compromise. I hope there's a compromise. But I want my kids to live here, and I want them to have that athletic advantage that I did not have. And so something as simple as a turf field will actually bring out the competitiveness in a kid that right now does not exist in this town at all. There's no spark to be good at a sport. And I think something as little as that will start to bring this town to a level that we've just never been there before. I know Tom is Rob coming what year was that when we won the districts?
2005, 6, yeah.
So I was in about high school, and I used to go to those games. And the community involvement at those games was next to none. People were out that you've never seen in years before, and people rooting for the Engle Cliffs baseball team. And that does not exist anymore, and I think something like this will make that exist, and it'll happen more often than it does. 2005, that was 12 years ago. And we had a special talent, his nephew, Rob Kaminsky. So we got to also look at that. Something like a field, lights, turf, like the community is going to start to get involved. And a community like Engle Cliffs is all about bringing people together. This is not political, Republican, Democrat. It's just about bringing people together. And you'd be surprised something as small as turf, how that could spark a community. And like I said, and like I know Tom mentioned it, I'm envious because it's always Engle Cliffs. The one town that I live in doesn't have turf. Why does Fort Lee, Edgewater, Tenafly, every town around us, think about that, every single town around us has turf. We're the one town that doesn't have turf. So are we the smart ones? We'll find out in time, obviously, with all the cancer conspiracies. I don't know, no one knows in here what will happen, but that's my little spiel.
All right, thank you. So, proud of Danny. He was one of my players on soccer as well. He's very humble, so you've done well, Danny. Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion to close the public.
Second.
All in favor?
I'd like to say something.
All in favor? Hold on.
I like to say something.
No, we have to close the public portion.
Sorry, yeah, it's late.
Okay, all in favor of closing the public portions?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have one more.
You got 20.
21.
Am I the 20th?
Blackjack.
You're 22. You're 22.
Mayor and council, good evening. Matthew Jeffrey, 25 Snyder Road, president of Engle Cliffs Little League. On behalf of all the Little League parents, we have over 100 parents. Please do something. You have a lot of good options. You have lights and/or turf. We need a field and a facility that matches the energy and enthusiasm of our kids and our families. Tonight, we won the Majors Interleague Rec Division.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Tomorrow, Engle Cliffs is assured of winning the minor league because you have two Engle Cliffs teams playing each other. Our coach pitch team, which started the year 1-7, made it to the coach pitch finals on Saturday. They lost, but they were the runners-up. I mean, huge achievements.
Where's that game tomorrow?
Johnson Field at 6 o'clock, so I encourage all of you to attend. A couple other points. You watched the College Baseball World Series. Turn it on ESPN. Every region, they're playing on turf fields. I've said this for a year as well. You look at every other town in our District 6, which is basically the eastern part of Bergen County, everyone but us has lights and/or turf. On behalf of the Little League, we respectfully request that you do something and please add to the lives and recreation facilities of our kids and our parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can I have a motion to close public portion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Councilwoman Park, you had a question?
Not a question, but, so, I know that, I have two kids, both in Little League. I don't know if Victoria's playing this year, but I know Bill, we were on the same team last year. My husband's been an assistant coach for the last 4 years. Baseball in this town has come a long way, and I'm very proud that baseball in Englewood Cliffs has come such a long way, and my kids are having the best times. The Little League coaches are great, the dads, they put in so much effort and their time, and, this is a big decision, as far as turf and lights, and I don't think it's something that, that we should decide overnight. And again, I know there's costs as well. I think, Catherine, you said we only have $1 million to bond right now? Okay, so, those are the things that we need to consider as well, because we don't want to put in the back burner. We want to see something happen, and we have to be, very conscious of what we have and what we can spend. I'm building a house.
I'm done.
And she was building, President Carol McMorrow was building a house, and even though, of course, I would want, everything that I want for the house, there's still a budget that I must follow, and we have to prioritize what's most important and what's not. That being said, as far as the turf, the crumb rubber, my husband and I go back and forth on this. He seems to not think it's a big deal. I read an article recently in the New York Times about a bunch of girls who played soccer, and they're all goalies, and they're playing on the turf, on the crumb rubber turf, and they apparently all got some kind of reproductive issues. That being said, at this point, I don't think I would ever want my kids to be, playing on that, just in case. So I'm definitely against crumb rubber. I wanted to wait till I heard everybody speak and give my opinion, because I am all for grass, but maybe I thought someone in the audience could maybe, change my mind about maybe doing cork or maybe doing something else, but I think that the budget kind of dictates that maybe we can't have everything right now. So, if it was my choice, or if I had some say, I would say I think lights are very important. Our kids, granted we don't have turf, but we get to play until the sun goes down, and at sometimes it goes down really early, 5, 6 o'clock. We should stop in the middle, and I don't think, that's fair to our children, and I think, perhaps if we had a shutdown time of 9:30, I think people would be okay with that. And the gazebo, I'm against the gazebo. I go to Overpeck Park every now and then, and there's always that one gazebo, and everybody's fighting over the gazebo because someone's in there for 3 hours and they won't leave the gazebo. So, I think more benches are great, but having one large gazebo, I think is going to end up with residences kind of, maybe bickering over the gazebo. Also, I just want to say that, I live on Pershing, which is a very busy road. And, there's we have a speed sign at one end of Pershing, but as soon as they pass Summit and come onto Floyd, that's my block, people are going 40, 45 miles an hour. So I don't really think there's any way to avoid the speeding unless you put a speed bump, and maybe I think that's a better idea than the parking lot. And the parking lot concerns me because when I first moved into this town, I was contemplating whether or not to have a playground in my backyard, to put up a playground. But my husband said, if you put the playground in the backyard, the kids will never go and play in the park and meet other children. So we decided against the playground in the backyard, and we went to Whitty Field to meet other children. But all the children we met were from other towns. They're, mostly children from Tenafly that were, So, as far as the playground, I think the playground's great. I would love to make it ADA compliant. But I think if we had a parking lot, that would just kind of entice other, communities to come to our town and use the facilities. And again, I think if we could do this piecemeal, I think that's a good idea. And there's nothing saying that we can't do grass for the first 2 years, and then if that doesn't work, and spending the money on maintenance, and if that doesn't work, then we can go back and do park court. But I don't see why we have to do all or nothing at this point. And, again, I would like to see progress, and so I don't want to put it in the back burner. I think, we should do what we can, but also be very aware of, what we can and cannot do. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, Councilwoman Park. Andy, Councilwoman Park referenced the New York Times article, and I think you referenced the same situation regarding the goalies over at Washington State University. Can you just repeat that? Because I want to have a balance here of views.
The reproductive issue I've not heard of yet. There was a finding by the Washington State University coach that her goalies were seeing an increase in cancer rates due to the synthetic turf. The claim she made, it caused the state health department to investigate it, and they said that wasn't true. I'm just telling you what they said. I don't know how it refers to it.
Okay. So I think there was a follow-up article that the New York Times had here after. Anybody else on council before we adjourn?
Me?
Yes,
So,
Councilwoman.
I also wanted to wait until the public portion was done, because I wanted to hear everyone else's opinions. And there were, quite a number of interesting ideas that I heard. But first, I'd like to mention that I feel a little old sitting up here when Danny Casada and William Bressler are in the room. My son Justin grew up playing, I don't know, pee-wee, baseball, football. They played flag football. I mean, I think Justin was one of the 20 people that Lynn had mentioned that, they were always at the field when they were growing up. So anyway, it's really great to see you guys. So Mary, I'm going to make your day even better. I agreed with a lot of the things that you had mentioned. I am personally for grass. I like to keep as much grass as possible, but I also understand some of the coaches' concerns about, canceling the games when it rains, and, maybe even like what Dan Casada had mentioned before, like we want to give our youngsters competitive edge. We want them to be exposed to playing on artificial turf, whether it's rubber or cork. I'm not the specialist, so I can't really go into what would be better over another. But I'd like to have some sort of a compromise where we keep, grass for the most part, and maybe throw in a turf or rubber, crumb rubber for one of the fields. So I really like cork. I really like your idea about that, Mary. And I also like the other gentleman's idea about, gentleman standing in the back, about doing it in, pieces. We don't have to do everything all at once. Maybe, we could talk to the engineer and come up with a plan where, maybe we could take one field and, do it in different stages. I also like the idea that Debbie Saberi had about doing a referendum, because, I understand that a lot of the coaches want certain things, but we also have senior citizens living in town who may not have kids, playing on the field. And this is going to impact their pockets as well. So I think that it's important that we narrow down our options and have a town referendum. And lastly, I'm not so much in favor of the parking. As Councilwoman Park had mentioned, we don't want to draw like too many outsiders to come to our field and use it, especially after we make it very beautiful. And I think what President McMorro had mentioned, you know, those incidents where we needed more extra parking, it only happens maybe once a year, right? So it's not something that it happens often. So those are my opinions, Mayor.
Okay, thanks.
Mayor?
Yeah, more comments?
Well, I just want to say that
Go ahead.
I'm very, very happy. I want to say thank you that you are, we're agreeing, Gloria. Because what you're saying is exactly what we said from a couple of meetings back. We'll find a compromise. So in hearing that, Ellen, thank you also. Andy, is the only thing I don't agree with, and only from a timing perspective, because to have a referendum, you have to wait till November, and to wait till November means we're waiting another full year, and if you're doing grass and turf, then you're waiting another year after that, so we're looking at 3 years. So for that, that's the only thing I don't agree with you. I would even give in and say, forget the parking lot if we can compromise on everything else. Andy, with the council's permission, of course, we have $1 million that's budgeted, give or take, right? A little bit, for capital improvement. In listening to the council's thoughts, can you get back to us with, and you had said in the beginning that we can somehow lay this out and do it in pieces, phases. Can you get back to us?
Yeah.
The council agrees with me. What can we do for $1 million? And give us a couple of options in listening to what, and get back to us by next month, because we would have to then, like you said, act on it by November.
I need a little bit of help from council.
Sure.
That is, I took down a lot of notes, and the one issue that's not answered, and I don't know if you can answer it tonight, is, do you want one of three things to happen? Do you want all the fields to be turf with court? Do you want half the complex or some version of half it to be turf and the other half to be grass, or do you want it all grass? Because I can't give you any options unless I know that answer.
Well, I think Councilwoman O was saying what in the beginning, when we started this, before we opened to the public, it was the hybrid, right? To
So
do,
half part turf, part grass.
Right, and I think what you should also do is calculate the cost savings of not having a parking lot, and I don't think there's any correlation between outsiders using a parking lot versus parallel parking. I mean, as far as I know, most people could parallel park, so. But so take that cost savings and convert it into a cork infill.
right,
That would convert the cork infill.
yeah. And then, like, just see how in phases we would do it, but obviously taking into consideration that if we started in November, that Little League would be able, and we have to do it in a phase, so we have to pick a phase that we're not ripping grass out and leaving no, you know what I mean?
Andy?
Because, hold on, the only reason I'm saying that is, I'm in the back of my mind, knowing what the school's proposed timeline is, so we don't want to be out of grass while they're out of grass, because if we have to go there to play it all, yeah, we need our grass, because it looks like they're doing their grass first, I think, so.
Your $1 million is tight, and I want to give you the best phasing schedule for your dollar.
Right.
But I still need a cumulatively answer, and whether it's all for one of the options or some split version. I need a direction on what I'm going, if I'm going all grass.
Well, I think it's hybrid, right? I mean, just
Can we get an option on both, meaning all grass, and then the other one would be hybrid, and the hybrid would be cork, not rubber?
Well, I think it sounds like from council perspective, rubber's off the table. It's cork.
Right, it's, I would say cork for me.
Let's take that off the table.
Yeah.
Just cork.
Yeah.
Just cork.
I already had that note.
Just cork, but just
So I
a
need
portion
everyone in
of
the
it.
audience to drink a lot of wine and send us your cork.
So then you want the all grass option and a hybrid option.
Yes.
Yes.
That's fine.
And then do all the other side extra things. Well, I think they already all are broken off, like the gazebo thing. Like, we could do that in phases. I think, like, even if we don't do it, but, like, don't put anything in its place for right now, and then if we want to add it later, we can always
I
come
do
back
think
and
we
lay
need
it.
tool shed, though.
My biggest concern from an electrical standpoint, is running the conduit, not a big deal. Okay, no, I'm not worried about that.
Just throw one other question. So, the soccer field you show on here is literally a full-size soccer field. So, I don't know your soccer programs that well. If you don't need a full-size field, if you play more of the small-size soccer, so 99, 77, if that's more important to you.
Yes.
We can take this field, rotate it a little bit, and shrink it, and that saves you money too.
I think that's better.
Well, let's ask
What do eighth graders play? What do eighth graders play on?
Cool.
The smaller size.
Yeah, we never, yeah.
And what size, what's the small size you use?
9 side, 8 side.
So 9v9. Okay.
That's usually 2
All right, I can
fields.
work with that. I can work with that.
Get it back to us as soon as possible.
So,
No.
Friday's okay?
No, Wednesday.
Yeah, we have a meeting
We have a
Wednesday.
meeting Wednesday.
Do you want it Wednesday?
Yeah, why not?
Talk about it Wednesday.
Yeah, we gotta move
That is
forward.
coming Wednesday
Yeah, we can do it, yeah.
So I don't want to come back again.
So then, what I want to do before we close is I want to thank Andy Hippolyte and Laser Consulting
Before we
for
close.
coming. Hold on one second. I want to thank you for coming, and for
Richard
just
Delano.
imparting all that. And then I also want to thank Richard and our employees have had a very, very long day today. Catherine's air conditioner broke today, so it was a hot office. Mark, we appreciate it, and I saw Mark on Saturday at the Recycle Fest with Carol and your helper there, Tommy. Tommy's great. We did a great job there. I want to thank the coaches. You guys are great. I know how much time you put in, and it's appreciated. I know the town appreciates it. I know your children appreciate it. And if you don't show kids sports, no one else will. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing that. And I want to see more soccer coaches come to these meetings also, because I need some input from them. The Recreation Advisory Board have sat through this meeting, and I greatly appreciate their input, comments tonight and before tonight. Really, you guys are doing a great job. We're trying to increase the recreation program in town for everybody, in all things, sports and music and art and everything else that we're going to be doing. I want to thank the council. I appreciate your input, your comments, your insights, your positions. I mean, I think that's important. That's what a council is all about. That's how you lead. So with that said, I have unfinished and new business, but I don't have any if anyone else does at this point. Anybody, new business, old business?
No, actually,
You had a comment?
Yeah, I had a request for Andy. So when you were going to put together a proposal for the hybrid option, would it be possible for you to keep in mind that, the town, personally, I would like to keep it, as much grass as possible, with the option of having the artificial...
That's why I asked for the size of soccer field, they shrink it.
Yeah,
Okay.
You can shrink it, so...
So I know you had mentioned maybe 50-50, but more like 70, 30, 70 grass, 30. So, as much as you can get...
As little as, give us go as little as possible.
Right.
All right, so, and I also want to thank the members of the public who came, who attended, who spoke, whose phones kept going off, especially you. I want to thank you for your input. Tonight's meeting, we got into the weeds a little bit, no pun intended, a little bit more than the last meeting, and I think we all handled it thoughtfully and respectfully for the most part, and I appreciate that.
It's important to thank, I want to say thank you to all my members down there on the other end for all working together, and great things happen when we all put our minds together.
Okay, so can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Second.
Second, okay. Should we just start Wednesday's meeting now?
No.